Welcome to a special one-shot deep dive into the first 3 seasons of HBO historical drama The Gilded Age with the Lorehounds, your guides to the proper etiquette for forcing your daughter to marry a duke. I'm Elysia, your penniless cousin from Pennsylvania, and I have with me today 2 guests. We have 2 integral lore master members of the network, Brian 8063, aka Usul, the foundation of us all, and his real-life sister, Lisa, aka RedZippy. You'll know them both well if you spend time on our Discord. Thank you, Brian and Lisa, for being here.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
And Brian, we're going to be hearing more from you again, talking about aliens soon too, with Stu, with Duve 71.
That's right. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So the way this episode is going to be structured is we're going to first give our spoiler-free hot takes on the series overall. We're going to be talking to those of you who aren't sure whether or not this is a show for you. And we'll also provide some historical background for the series. And then after the spoiler break, we're going to talk through the main stories and characters. We're going to be talking through all 3 seasons, but of course, mostly focusing on how season 3 ends. And just to set us up here, the official plot premise is the conflict surrounding the new money Russell family and their old money neighbors, the Van Ryn family, in 1880s New York City high society. So, all right, just one at a time, spoiler-free overall thoughts on the show. To whom would you recommend it and why? Let's start with you, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's going to be top 10. Not sure exactly where it is going to land, but it's just really great mix of drama and just poking through a lot of thoughtful history. And I want to stress thoughtful because they are have historians as consultants. They've read, and it just shows where you see class among all races, identity, racism, homophobia, all and many other elements that are peeking through the entire series. And it's just really, really well done kind of drama. And people who are not only, I think, interested in costume drama would be interested in this, but anyone who has any kind of inkling of how did we get here and identity of who am I? How do I navigate through society? Just really well done.
Yeah, that's great. Let me turn it to you, Lisa. What is your overall spoiler-free thoughts, and to whom would you recommend this series and why?
Yes, hello. My brother, yes, handles the very, historical, grounded take on the recommendation. I would also chime in and say that it is also going to be probably on my top 10 list. And for me, I am also reminded of folks that loved, obviously, Downton Abbey or The Crown, but it is soapy in nature. So
Right.
want to understand class and, and canoodling behind people's backs and what they're doing and whose side they're on, and really looking beyond the veil of how people really live. I'm aging myself by saying Dynasty, Dallas.
The classics.
Yeah. Nowadays, Bridgerton, Taylor Sheridan, that kind of thing. So for me, I also enjoy the soap opera part of it as well.
Yeah, I think Dynasty is a good comparison because it is, regardless of the family setting, it is about similar dynamics. The legacy passing through family, gaining and maintaining power, things like that in society. Yeah. And so, are you a big fan of historical dramas in general? Or were you a fan of, for anyone who doesn't know, The Gilded Age is from Julian Fellowes, who is best known for Downton Abbey. So are you a Downton Abbey fan?
Oh, yes. In fact, I'll let my brother answer this question first because he can explain.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What we grew up with.
The 2 of us grew up in a PBS loving household.
Great.
So our uncles and our father, we got exposed to PBS shows like Henry VIII and the Six Wives, the 1970 rerun. This was rerun, so we were in our early teens probably. I Claudius,
Mm.
Roots, and Merchant Ivory films, right? Remains of the Day,
Yes.
Room with a View, all these kinds of similar themes popping up about power and maneuvering yourself to gain more power and rising in society. So we grew up in that kind of TV movie kind of genre.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've carried it through where, I watch over and over, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and
Okay.
Sensibility, Age of Innocence.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Marie Antoinette, which is a French production, I believe, but it's in English, and it's really well done about her and her struggles, and especially in the early. So season 2 is out. I'll have to hunt it down, but it's another good title out there for people.
I've also, I guess like my mom and I were into watching these PBS shows and movies and things like that. So I guess I share that sort of background. As for this year, I've watched so far the first episode of Miss Austen from
Mm.
Jane Austen's sister's point of view. And then I was told that I had to watch Lost in Austin. So if that gives it away, I may or may not be a Jane Austen fan.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of I really enjoyed a movie that came out, a French film that came out this year called Jane Austen Wrecked My Life.
Oh, that's great. Putting that on my list.
Yeah.
But I know, Brian, you are interested in history in general. Would you say that you have an interest in late 19th century history where this show is set?
Absolutely. I'm totally geeking out on this for a couple reasons. One is, we grew up in Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the birthplace of John D. Rockefeller,
Okay.
and Akron, which is a stone throw away, the rubber capital of the planet, when the creation, right, of bicycles, but especially it was the automobile.
Automobile
Right.
tires. Yep.
Yeah, automobile tires that made a fortune for these folks. So, growing up in Cleveland, I started to read about John D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and Carnegie. I was born in Pittsburgh, so I had an
Mm-hmm.
interest before we moved to Cleveland, and I had just an affinity to steel and all these. So I had this interest in kind of this business, Gilded Age, industries and railroads. And then there's an interest in British history, specifically with political, military, diplomatic, and society. And Lisa and I think Lisa can agree, we were glued to the TV set when Princess
Oh,
Diana
yeah.
was
Right.
married, right,
Yeah.
1981. And finally, specifically the American Gilded Age for listeners, I'm a historian of American political history with a specialty on the presidency. And in our backyard in Ohio was the James Garfield National Historic Site. And I worked there as a volunteer and a national park ranger. And that was the president in 1881. So we're only 3 years after the show started. He was president. He was assassinated in that year. And so I had to learn the political history and society of the early Gilded Age. And I was hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like living in the Gilded Age around where Brian and I are from. I'm living in Akron, so we have Stan Hewitt, which was the Cyberlings for rubber, and
Mhm.
we've got the Goodyear, the Firestone, the Goodrich. It literally I can like walk out or drive out my driveway, and about a mile down, I am seeing these Gilded Age mansions or these progression area
Mm-hmm.
mansions. Where we grew up, Euclid Avenue was Millionaires Row, and all of
Yeah.
those folks that were watching who are in New York vacationed and had homes in Cleveland, and the net worth of Euclid Avenue, I think, far exceeded some of the net worth of folks who were living in New York or Rhode Island. So yeah, it I'm living in it. It's the
Yeah.
history is it's living history for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And Lisa, what is it about this show, would you say, what sets this show apart from other historical dramas?
I would agree with what Brian said, my brother said earlier, is the fact that they actually do take great care in the getting historical accuracy and really taking note of all of these really specific, details, historical details. I so appreciate that. And also growing up with my brother, it's very difficult for me to go to historical dramas or watch historical dramas without my brother like, no, that's not how they did that. That did not happen then. So so the fact that my brother likes the show is always a thumbs up for me as well. So it's historical accuracy, spare no expense on the costumes and everything like that. So, but really what drew me in is, of course, I'm a Julian Fellowes fan, but for me, it was the cast.
Right.
My background is in film and theater. And so when I learned that, throughout the
Right.
few seasons, there's 31 Broadway actors who have been in the show.
Mm.
So the cast for me, especially Carrie Coon and Christine
Yeah.
Baranski, drew me in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great cast.
I think
Fabulous.
those were the first two. And of course, also,
Cynthia Nixon.
yep. Thank you. And of course, also Cynthia Nixon. I was a Sex and the
Mhm.
City fan back in the day. I watched the first season of the new show. I do plan to finish it off. I'm glad they're just doing 3 seasons. But yeah.
Yeah, I could not. After the first movie, I was religiously addicted to Sex and the City. I watched the first movie. I have not watched a single episode of what is even the name of the
And Just Like That, I think. Something
Yeah,
like that.
never watched.
Yeah.
Nope, no
Yeah.
interest. I
Yeah, I
want to
watched the
preserve.
first season. It was, yeah. It
Yeah.
starts with, sorry, it was spoiler for the very beginning of the first season, but it starts with a big dying, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, this show, from my perspective, yeah, I'm also, it's in my definitely top 10. We were just talking before we started about rankings at the end of the year, and how I think my definitely top 10 is longer than 10 right now, but this is in my definitely top 10.
100%.
Yep.
I mean, we were just talking about the role of historical dramas and getting us excited for understanding the context of why things are the way they are today. One thing that stands out to me is there was a bit in a previous season about the Brooklyn Bridge, and I did not
Yes.
know that actually the primary driving architects behind that was a woman, Emily Warren Rubling.
Yes.
And you learn facts like this. It was an engaging storyline, regardless. I was completely sucked into that. But then,
Yeah.
of course, after that, I go back and I'm like, oh, I'm looking this woman up. I'm looking up the history around the bridge and things like that. And just really opens my eyes in a lot of ways. We'll talk about, I'm saving one of my favorite characters, Peggy, for the end of our discussion, but just through her storylines, everything that we learn about the wealthy Black society of New York and Newport, Rhode Island at this time, it's just, yeah, it's incredible. All the doors this opens, but it is fun, frothy drama with characters that I like.
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
It's the
Yeah.
feel good, feel bad, dramedy sort
Yes,
of.
indeed.
That's right.
I hate them, but I love them. And,
Yeah,
ooh, I didn't
exactly.
know that happened. As my brother knows, I often don't know anything happened in the world unless they made a television show or movie out of it. So,
That's the
That's right.
importance of the role of media. So that's
Exactly.
one of the reasons why we do what we do here in the Lorehounds. Yeah, that's why we're having this
That's right.
conversation.
Yep.
Exactly. And, we were, Elysia, were quickly talking about before the podcast about, there are purists out there. So, well, if you don't get the history right, I'm not going forward with this. I'm a philosopher. Well, I'm not a
Yes,
philosopher,
you
but
are. You
well,
are.
thank you. I'm of the philosophy where if it gets you interested in reading something more about the history,
Mhm.
then it's a winner. And this to me, I think for all three of us, right, it's a winner that way. You just
Yeah.
start going and reading more about all this great character, all this rich history.
And the
Yeah.
cast has said as such too in a lot of their interviews is, they are filming in locations and they're sitting, waiting for a scene to be shot, and they realize they're in the same building that XYZ. And so even the cast really gets thrown
Right.
into the historical relevance of it all.
Yeah, it's fun to see how they, so we'll talk about this more as we go, but some of these characters are based on actual historical characters. Some they kind of fudge together so that they can play with their storylines a bit, and others are just kind of amalgamations of types of people who lived at the time. Um, and they do a little fudging with the dates too, like some things
Hmm.
happen earlier, later, slightly. Like it's all within the same Gilded Age period, but they shuffle it around so that it fits the plot. And I'm fine with all of that. I'm fine with all of that. They to make the stories cohesive and to make because from the TV perspective, they need to think about, well, what is each character's arc this season? What are the themes that we are focusing on this season, and how do we make this cohesive and not just a grab bag of historical events?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm the same way, Alicia. It's like if you are moving the timeline a little bit, I, it's just great. It's just so engaging. It's like, fine, just go
Hmm.
for it. Whatever
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, so for anyone who isn't a historian, just to set the time period a little bit, this it's the Gilded Age is the specifically in the U.S., particularly centered in New York, from the 1870s to late 1890s, and this was followed by the Progressive Era from the late 1890s to the 1920s, and so the English equivalent at this time was the Victorian Age, which was 1837 to 1901. It's the reign of Queen Victoria, and it was followed by the Edwardian Age from 1901 to 1914. So yeah, so we're talking Victorian era in the UK, Gilded Age here, setting up for the Progressive era, um, and it is a particular on both sides of the pond. It is a particular era of interest for me personally because it's a time of such change, rapid
Mm.
change.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Everything is in flux. Everything from political parties to mechanics, transportation, finance, society,
Technology.
technology. Exactly. It's just and when you reflect, we're not a political podcast, but when you
Hmm.
reflect it today, you get to see some of that. But I think people back then were probably more used to all this fast changes. It's scary, yes, but it change seemed to be a little more normal back then
Right.
than maybe even today.
I remember my mom talking about an aunt of hers who said before she passed away, I lived through the most exciting time that will ever happen. Yes,
Mm.
your computers now and everything, but yeah,
Hmm.
I lived through so much change.
Yeah, one of
Yeah,
the books Brian recommended to me was The Victorian Internet, which was about the
Mm,
invention of the telegraph. And
yeah.
to have read what a game changer that was for them, to be across the Atlantic and be able to communicate back and forth, and how they're experiencing the change, and the anxiety and the excitement that comes with it, we're experiencing for sure in the internet age. But that's a great summary of what this time period was like for everyone back in the day. So much change.
right, right. All right. Well, we are going to be talking through some of those as we get into the show. So I'll say, just to set this up for those who haven't watched yet, I think it's been a great show all three seasons, but season three is the one that's really catching fire.
Yeah.
If you're at all drawn to historical dramas, definitely watch this and know that season three takes the story to new levels. Um,
Yep.
I would say Bridgerton fans, this is great. It's less overtly sexy. It's still I would still say it's sexy, especially, I don't know, like George and Bertha. Ooh.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I would say, Bridgerton is fun and frothy, but I do ultimately prefer the more grounded takes, and that's what this is. And it still has all that delicious character drama that gets me sucked in and so worried. Like, what
Mhm.
about Jack and the clock?
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's, for lack of a better phrase, eye candy. I mean,
Right,
it's
sure.
just, yeah. I mean, to see, the costumes and the homes and how the balls and dinners and teas are all presented, both in Bridgerton and Gilded Age. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
gorgeous to watch.
And I want to shout out another top favorite of mine. It is a PBS show. Don't know if you guys watched it. Sanditon. It had 3 seasons. Highly recommended. It's based
Hmm.
on Jane Austen's unfinished novel. And I would say if you're a fan of The Gilded Age, definitely watch this. It is also, because it's based on an unfinished Jane Austen novel, it is also more grounded, but it does also it's set in England on a beach town, Sanditon. But it does also feature a Black character in the main cast where we're seeing her experience through her eyes and
Oh,
her
yeah.
family and where she comes from. And yeah. So it has echoes a lot of the similar themes, but from the other side of the ocean.
Nice, nice.
Well, as usual, a Lorehound podcast episode just makes my must watch, must read list even longer. So
Exactly.
love
Exactly.
that.
Our job is done.
Yes.
So, as I mentioned before, this show is created by Julian Fellowes. He's best known for Downton Abbey. He also won an Oscar in 2001 for the film Gosford Park. Yeah, so Downton Abbey, for those of you who are fans of that, that is set in England from 1912 to 1926. So, this is set like 30 years before that. So, I know there was a time when he was first conceiving of it, he thought it might be a prequel with
Mm.
Cora's story because Cora, the mother in Downton Abbey, is American.
Yeah, the
And
American
Yeah.
Princess kind of thing. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm so I think it's not a bad thing. First of all, for timelines, she would have been too young at this point that he wanted to set it in.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and then he said it was possible that we could get a young Violet in this show. We'll see.
Uh,
But I
Mm.
think yeah, I think it's also just because, if it's Cora, we know exactly where her story is going. We know which characters stood in for her in this series. We'll get into it, but yeah, now we have more mystery. Where is her character story going? Even if we do know the real history.
indeed.
That's right. That's right. And when we get to kind of Gladys and Hector, well, I'll throw in a little bit of the tragedy of the British aristocracy in the
Okay.
1880s because we're beginning to
Okay.
see the decline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. Which
sad.
sets up Downton Abbey, the story there perfectly, because
Yep.
that's like right after this decline. And how do these families cope with
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Exactly. You got it.
Are you going to watch the final film from Downton Abbey? The grand finale is releasing September 12th.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
I'll
yes.
be there. I'll be
Indeed.
there. I'm
Popcorn
going to be,
on there.
yeah.
Yep.
The last one was set during the 20s with Mary filming a film in their house. So that was like totally up my alley. I love
Oh,
that.
100%. Right.
um,
Yeah.
Um, but so Julian Fellowes, he is actually a member of the aristocracy himself. He is officially the Baron of West Stafford, which is he's a life peer, not hereditary, and he was appointed by the crown in 2011. But he does come from a fancy schmancy background. He is a Tory or conservative in the House of Lords. He did vote for Brexit, but he is progressive in certain other ways. Like his wife, Emma Joy Kitchener, she would have become the Countess of Khartoum and Broome in Kent if women were allowed to inherit titles. But
Oh, wow.
only in the royal family can you inherit a title, not the quote unquote lesser nobility,
Mhm.
non royal nobility. And
That's right.
so,
Non-royal.
yeah. The
Yeah.
title went extinct instead, which is, and he like spoke out, you do sense a bit of feminism and there he does, despite
Yes.
being a Tory, he is also a feminist, I feel comfortable saying.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's just one of many declines you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing is that the increase of creation of these positions as dukedoms, that are not landed aristocracy. Yeah, they're just like, hey, here you go. I'm going to give it to you. And the landed aristocracy, what? Who are you?
Yeah.
this new stuff. It's like freaking them out.
Right, right.
Yeah,
These are not the rules that I was taught.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I give him a lot of credit, Julian Fellowes, for Lisa. You brought up that he read about Black Gotham and the New York City Black elite, and he hired historians, as you were saying, but
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
he's like, this show is set in America. I need an American writing partner. So he worked with Sonia Warfield, who also was one of the writers in She-Ra Princesses of Power, which I loved personally. Did you guys watch that one?
No.
No, no, I have not, but heard of it. Yeah, nice.
It's one of the, I mean, it's an animated series for, I mean, not like preschoolers, but kids, like preteens
Yeah.
maybe, but it's one of the better ones for sure. Very well written. um, so Gilded Age is set, this show, season 1 is set in 1882, and we are up to, I guess I meant 1884 in season 3, 84 or 85, one of those two.
84. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, with the panic.
Right. Okay. Right. So we got New York City in the midst of many changes. And the first season premiered in January of 2022. We got the second one not that much later in October of 2023. And in December of 2023, the series was renewed for a third season, but it didn't come out until 2025 because of the same reason for everybody else, the
Right.
strikes and everything.
Strikes.
Yeah.
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 But the good news is in July, even before the season finale, it was renewed for a fourth season. And
Oh, okay.
yeah. So it's been earning HBO money apparently. It's one of
Mm.
the biggest hits in the network even when the new season's not airing. It's one of the most popular shows on the network.
Yay.
Um yeah. It's
Yeah.
gotten on Rotten Tomatoes, season 3 has a 95% from critics, 81 from audiences, 73% on Metacritic, 7 from audiences, or 8.4 on IMDb, which IMDb people are tough. So 8.4
Yeah.
is quite high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I think it says something about the escapism too, and its popularity right now. So,
Hmm.
you can just turn your mind off a little bit,
Right.
and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still, like we were saying, because it provides context, it
Mhm.
also makes you think about things that are happening now too, but with a bit of distance.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and you see in the today's like populism about oligarchs and
Hmm.
millionaires and billionaires. It's like, oh, I can watch a TV show that has has this highest level of rich, super rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, in the Alien Earth episode
Yeah,
1 breakdown, I did a comparison of JD Rockefeller, who you're saying your neighbor from
yeah,
1930. He was the richest man
hmm
in 1930, and Elon Musk, who's the richest man today. I did
Nice.
a financial breakdown compared to a character from Alien Earth, and it's a bit dystopic.
yeah. That was a
Ooh.
great analysis for those on.
Oh
Go
yeah,
to
I did it on
Discord,
Discord
people.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go on
yeah.
Discord, people, and read it. It's crazy.
Yeah, the percentage of the pie is yeah, anyway. But we see where it starts. We see where it starts.
That's right.
Um, I think I just want to shout out, I played a clip of the music at the beginning, but I want to shout out the composers, Harry Gregson Williams and Rupert Gregson Williams. The theme song's so iconic, and the music throughout is just really brings it all to life.
Yes. Yeah. It's a great theme, and from the first few notes,
Yes.
the world that you're stepping into, and so it's excellent. I'm a big fan of the composition and the composers as well. Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it starts with that great fast
Yep.
tone with the railroad, and
Mhm.
it's
Hmm.
perfect for this time period. Everything is going fast, everything is changing. It just sets the tone really, really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Lisa, you also brought up the costumes. The
Oh my
lead
gosh.
designer, Kaja
uh,
Walika Maimon, she was already nominated for an Emmy for season 2. It got 6 Emmy noms for season 2, and I think that's really when people started to be like, "Hey, this show is really something." And I
Yeah.
think season
Yeah.
3 is probably going to get more next year.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, as popular as it is, and having worked in a playhouse and one of the largest costume shops in the country, I can tell you that the craftsmanship and the care and the attention and the detail is just impeccable, and it's just absolutely a joy to watch. And I know the cast talk endlessly about how much they appreciate. That's one thing I've learned about actors, is that they really don't start feeling their character until they're in their costumes. So the fact that there is a costume designer on this show that really, really takes great care with them and really puts them in that era really makes the show work as well as it does, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love details like the fact that because the Van Ryns are the old money and more conservative, they are always wearing slightly dated fashions for the year in which it's set. Whereas because the Russell family is the new money, they're always wearing the most fashion forward that's slightly ahead of the year where it's set. Details
Yes,
like that really give the characters more dimension.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So the episodes are about 45 minutes to an hour 20 each. Really varies.
Yeah.
They're generously length. They're generously length. And we have 9 episodes in the first season, and then seasons 2 and 3 had 8 episodes each. Presumably they'll continue like that. How do you both feel about that balance of episode length and the number that we get per season?
I have to say, unlike some of the pacing problems that I have with other HBO shows, the House of the Dragon,
Yeah,
They got a
uh,
surprise 8
that's
episodes
yeah,
later.
right.
Yeah.
I really I don't have an issue. They pace it really well. Although one of the things I've noted, and we can talk about it a little bit later, is I'm not quite sure. They don't delineate how much time has passed, but then again, House of the Dragon is the same way. So, but anyway, but yeah, 8 seasons really works. The showrunners do a really good job of pacing it out, I feel, on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to be about the right number, an 8. I always kind of like, oh, I wish would like be 10, but they really, I think, put a really good pace on the show. You don't feel really hurried, or you're wondering like what's going on. There's one segment we'll talk about relating to George and Bertha, but um, it's really, I think, well done, and I'm okay if you give me an hour. I'm here for the ride.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, although season 3 is paced much better, than, I mean, I maybe the first 2 seasons, they could have done a little bit more with the number of episodes they had, but,
Mm.
yeah, so,
Hmm.
Season 1 was laying a lot of the groundwork. I do
yeah.
think, yeah, it was. I mean,
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it a weak season by any means, but of the 3, it was the weakest.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, you just have to have all this set up, and you're also just trying to figure out all the characters and all the connections, and it kind of takes away a little bit, I think, mentally with what's going on in the drama. But once you're in season 2 and 3,
Oh,
you
yeah.
kind of get into it. It's like you can just play with it a lot more.
Yeah. All right. I mean, okay, I have on here the Pukila scale rating.
Hmm.
Do we think it's negative?
I I'm gonna insert
But
myself here as a
Uh-huh.
Lorehound fan. What is the Pakula rating?
Tequila reading. So Marilyn Tequila, she does not
Yeah,
like
that's
violence, but it also pertains to like emotional violence, psychological violence. So it's a rating of. She says Clockwork Orange is a 5. She's never seen it. I don't think Clockwork Orange is a 5. I would give it a 3. I think something
hmm,
like.
yeah, American Psycho is a 5.
Yeah,
American
or I'd say like The
Psycho, yeah,
Walking Dead is a 5, or The
Walking Dead,
Boys is like a 7.
yeah, off the charts.
um, but yeah, that's great. Thank you for making sure that's clarified because I'm sure other people are wondering too. Um,
Yeah, this,
but
Gilded Age would be a -1.
yeah, we had a gunshot wound. Uh,
Yeah, the gunshot wound,
Yeah,
and there's
People
a
fight, but normal fighting.
yeah. Maybe
that's
they
right.
dare to kiss or a little peck on the cheek and oh,
Right. Well, but sex
Yeah,
is not counted in that
oh,
as
okay, very good.
unless it's
yeah,
sexual violence. Yeah.
Roger that.
right, right. And then
Yeah.
we had the carriage scene, which was quick, but it wasn't a
Hmm.
big deal. It wasn't graphic.
Yeah.
No, limbs weren't flying around and there
Yeah.
was no
You're
blood
right.
on the
Right.
site and
I mean,
No.
characters might die. And
Yes.
there is nasty there's just the normal nastiness of life, but it's not leading into that. Even when it does get into social issues, we see characters get put in scary situations, and then we see them taken back into the warm, comfortable womb of the people who love them for the most part.
That's right. And I think the writing reflects a time period where you're not talking about feeling so much,
No.
at least among other people, maybe within your family, as we've seen throughout the entire seasons. But, in public, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about my feelings. I mean, I'm not talking about tragedy.
Mm.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
kind of have that Victorian model that you're still following.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any final spoiler free thoughts that you want to share with anyone who might not listen past the spoiler warning?
I would say again that the acting is fantastic. It
Yeah.
not only is a great show, but what elevates it, in my opinion, is the acting on the show is just chef's kiss. So just to be able to enjoy, again, I go back to these Broadway superstars, these Emmy, Tony Award winning folks, the Felicia
Yeah.
Rashads, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is it's divine. Yeah, and it makes it that much more fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly. For those who may not be interested in costume drama, I say to you, give it a try because I think you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
The acting and the drama. Yeah,
Yeah. And there's a certain modernity to it as well.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just by definition of when and where it's set. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great note to take a quick break on. And when we get back, we will be talking full spoilers for all 3 seasons of The Gilded Age. So if you haven't watched, I hope we've convinced you to go and do so. And we'll be here once you've caught up. All right. See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.
All right.
Hey everyone, David here. Wanted to tell you about a company that makes some really beautiful Middle Earth inspired products. Actually, I wish I had discovered OSHA slings when my daughter was little and I was using a lot of different baby slings and carriers. They sent me one of their Ancients of Gondor Ithilden baby carriers. Honestly, the design of this carrier is cool as hell. The quality is impeccable. It's a really smart design and super easy to use. I wish I had this when I needed it. I would have loved to show off my dad nerd cred at the time. But they also sent me a really nice blanket, the Misty Mountains Throw. And now that same daughter, she monopolizes it whenever she's on the couch. It's beautiful, just the right weight. It's brushed cotton, so it's breathable and keeps us really cozy. We've been having a lot of cold weather lately, so we're always fighting over who gets to use it. A little about OSHA. They're a family-owned Scottish company. They've been handcrafting products since about 2010. Everything's ethically sourced and made in their solar-powered workshop. Check out their website. They've got a bunch of information about their sustainability practices. That's something that's really important to me. And they have this huge line of official Lord of the Rings products. They're making baby carriers, throws, scarves, mugs, tea towels, and the designs are stunning. Like, go check out the website right now. There's a link in the show notes. New customers get 10% off with the code Lorehounds. Go to OSCHAslings.com.
All right, welcome back. So, just to set the stage before we talk through kind of more character by character, but a fuller plot premise is the American Gilded Age was a period of immense economic change, great conflict between the old ways and brand new systems, and huge fortunes were made and lost. In 1882, young Marion Brooke moves from rural Pennsylvania to New York City after the death of her father to live with her aunts Agnes, Van Ryn, and Ada Brooke. Accompanied by Peggy Scott, an aspiring writer seeking a fresh start, Marion inadvertently becomes enmeshed in a social war between one of her aunts, a scion of the old money set, and her stupendously rich neighbors, a ruthless railroad tycoon and his ambitious wife, George and Bertha Russell. Exposed to a world on the brink of the modern age, Marion must choose if she will follow the established rules of society or forge her own path. And let's begin with the ants in question, two of the biggest names in the cast, Agnes von Ryn and Ada Brooke, later called Forte. And these are played by Christine Baranski and Cynthia Nixon. Overall thoughts on these two characters, Lisa?
Oh my gosh. Well, for me, Agnes, Christine Baranski is my Dame Maggie Smith from Downton
Mm-hmm.
Abbey. If you loved Maggie Smith and Downton Abbey, and who doesn't, you will love Agnes and Christine Baranski. So just absolutely
Yeah.
love her.
She
Yeah.
gets all the best lines in the
Best
show.
lines,
Like,
best lines.
I wrote a few down from this season. We get Ada goes on a temperance spree, which luckily she lets up on by the end of the season. But Agnes is having none of it. She's like, well, perhaps I will find my place in Newport with Aurora, and I'll spend the rest of my days with society's cast-offs and women of ill repute. At least they'll have wine.
Yes. And it's a perfect pause, too.
That's brilliant.
Wine.
Yeah.
Or from season 1, first Mrs. Chamberlain and now them. Why don't we just go outside and roam in the gutter? It will save time. She's talking about Mrs. Chamberlain was a season 1 character only, played by Jean Triplehorn, who was just kind of served as a warning for the rest of the female characters about what can happen if you don't live within the strictures of society within your marriages. And that's a theme throughout. And then the other them is, of course, the Russells. Why don't we go roam the gutter? It'll save time.
That's right. We are, they symbolize this old money. Literally across the street, you've got new money and you're freaking out.
Mhm.
And Agnes is just fabulous about just commenting, right? She's our narrator in some ways for the old money and the decline of that old money, but she's so proud, right?
Yes.
She's so proud. And we see this with season 3 as we get to talk a little bit later about the Historical Society. This is pre-Civil War 1700s kind of family. And you don't mess around with them because they controlled New York for a long time, but you really begin to see the freak out of new money literally knocking on your door.
Yeah, you can see it almost as, as much as the new money is coming in and the entrepreneurship and so forth and the opportunity. But I think Agnes and her family are more like, but we have America because of my family. You don't even get to cross the pond or, raise your money and become rich unless my family did all of the hard work, and we're the heroes of this country. We started this country. So attention must be paid and honor must be paid.
That's right. Exactly.
Which, I mean, there's an aspect of that that's fair a bit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's very witty, very biting.
Yeah.
And, and there's also this idea that, we were forced to suffer through these things because they were the right thing to do. How dare you marry for love when neither of these two sisters were allowed to? Agnes was, she had a not terribly happy marriage, but it got her son and money. So, and Ada, the reason why she never got married until season 2 is that her father blocked her from marrying her first love when she was younger, which is a theme we see coming back again and again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. She Ada is the quintessential, or I can't say, I'm having a lot of words that I can't say right, but and I loved in season 3 where Marion is really torn about getting married at all, and maybe she'll just become a spinster. And that scene that Ada has, having lived up until she married Forte, that no, you really don't want this life. And it's a really great example, but in between the sisters of the power shift and the dynamics and the sibling dynamics between the two, and how powerless Ada is in the beginning and how she grows into her own agency and her own power. And then of course Agnes has to deal with that as well, because I've always been in charge. Ada, it played beautifully, of course, by Cynthia Nixon.
Once they swap fortunes, it was funny, the whole bit where the entire staff of the house is confused, because not only has Agnes always been the one in charge because she married into that money, but also she just has the more domineering personality. Or does she have the more domineering personality because she's always been the one in charge?
Right.
I'm sure it's from column A and B together. Porque no los dos. But and it's interesting to see in this most recent season. Well, I mean, Ada's story last season, she finally finds love with her husband, Luke Forte, the pastor. And then he dies of cancer.
Like, God, that was cool.
That
It's
was rough.
brutal.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You see the happiness and then the happiness just
Oh,
ripped away. Oh, it's
it was
Yeah,
horrible.
awful. Yeah, but then it becomes better to have loved and lost than never to
right,
have loved at all.
right.
Exactly.
And at least,
Exactly.
yeah, she saved her family out of it with
Yeah.
his money he left her. Um, But I was wondering because this is around the time that early radiation treatments were first being developed. So I've been
Hmm.
kept waiting for them to, I don't know, I thought that, you know, Ada got so into that temperance movement this season. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sick of her trying to make everyone sign this pledge.
Oh my
Um, I was like,
Yeah.
why doesn't she get into cancer research? But I guess that has not yet been brought up. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, aside on all of this is that if I were to take, to do a rewatch, the whole medical side of it, I know we'll that'll really come up for us in, the episode where George is shot, and all
Yes.
of a sudden
Hmm.
medically what was available and what was kosher and okay to do, and you're right, was cancer research and, where was the medical progression in
Yeah.
line with industrial
Yeah.
progression?
Well, this was around the time when the first American doctor started experimenting with X-ray treatments for breast cancer. So
Oh, okay.
maybe a character gets breast cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Oh,
3 years before we had, I believe it was Edison had an early kind of detector, which didn't really, it basically was like a metal detector that if they used it on President Garfield in 1881,
Mm.
where they just moved over the body and you could try to find tried to find the bullet.
oh.
So, um, so I wonder, yeah, it's really in early stages of technology. It would be very interesting medically to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Good thing
Uh,
we have a doctor. Yeah.
This is why we're Lorehounds, and this is why
Yeah.
I enjoy the company of my brother. I learned so much.
um, I was excited to see Ada's spiritualism storyline
yes.
pick up this season. I think they could have gone a bit deeper in it. We see her.
Hmm.
This was a time when spiritualism was really popular around in the US and other places in the world too. And so she meets with a Madame Dashkova, played by Andrea Martin. And we find out basically, Madame Deshkova says, "Oh, he's speaking Italian." She's like, "My husband doesn't speak Italian." Luca Forte. She's like, "That was a misprint in the paper," and gets called out. What I would have loved to have seen them go into in that storyline, though, was there's a documentary from last year called "Look Into My Eyes," and it's about people today who act as mediums and spiritualists and things like
Hmm.
that. And it's it's not going to change your mind whether you believe it in or not. You'll leave thinking the same thing about whether it works or not. But what you notice from that is that it provides a kind of therapy from
Yeah.
people on both sides of the table. And that's
Yes.
something I would have liked to have seen them dig into a little bit more with Ada's story here.
Yeah, a really good, psychic would have explored more of that, I think, with Ada,
Hmm.
that some of her, shall we say, grief counseling, that essentially that's what Ada is going through, is her
Hmm.
grief
Hmm.
and how to deal with it, and who can she talk to about it, and she feels this is actually someone she can talk to in a more professional or empath type of psychic would have really been able to explore a little bit. But of course, this character had no interest really in that; just wanted her money and continued visits. I was so proud of Ada when the light bulb went off for her. Elysia, as you said, when she realized that she had just read about her husband's death in the newspaper, and
Yeah.
and called her up, and for Ada to stand up for herself and realize that
Right.
she'd been taken
Yeah.
advantage of, and just stand up and leave, and be angry. It was a great scene, and I was really proud of Ada's growth when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and exactly right. It's so prevalent in this time period where you have seances. There's also, I can't remember the term, but there is also in this popular in this time period where like you could read the head. There are bumps in the head, the
Oh
shape of the
yeah,
head.
Oh, phrenology. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
yes,
It was also very popular in this time period. And so it's a big industry
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's still quite popular. People want
Yeah.
but it's because it still operates as a type of therapy today, or people
Mhm.
want, a direction or something to frame things, their experiences.
Right. And as human beings, we're always going to be fascinated with what happens after death and what happens, in the afterlife. So it's always a core of us being human to know what happens after we die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And I would say collectively, Ada and Agnes are two of the characters we've seen change the most over the 3 seasons of the show. That we see Marion enter their household as, this breath of fresh air, this wind of youth, but also a progressive force within the household. Of course, bringing in Peggy, who we'll talk about later, and then on the other side, the Russells are shaking up society, and white society at least, and how Agnes especially can deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Marion is a really interesting character to me because she seems to be able to exist in both worlds quite well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
She has enough reverence and respect for the old money and, of course, her family who is supporting her emotionally and financially and so forth. But to your point, she's progressive. And I think one of the interesting threads that I see in her is maybe at what point will she be like, okay, wait, so you're saying if I actually do marry, even though she's been engaged 3 times, she hasn't gotten married, and it's like, yeah, but will I be able to continue to work? Will I,
Mhm.
or my partner will have to be someone who will be able to go along with
Right,
these progressive ideas of
right,
feminism and value and power, that women don't have in this society. So, yeah,
right,
she's a great character, and again, I'll be the one to say Meryl Streep's daughter, so
right. Well, that's
that
good,
kind of
that's good.
genes in there.
We're gonna dig a bit more into Marion's story and these 3 engagements that you mentioned in a moment. But just to wrap up with Agnes, you brought up earlier the historical society, and there's a new character, Mrs. Foster, who I was very worried about when she showed up. I'm like, she's after Oscar. I know it. She's after
Yeah,
Oscar.
exactly.
But she wanted to invite Agnes to the board of the New York Historical Society. Brian, was this a real institution? Do you know?
Yes, yes. It was, and it dates back a long time, and and like this, these nonprofits, you're going to have to lean in on finances. And where do you go to the finances? You go to the moneyed class. So it's old money, it's new money, but it makes sense to have maybe old money. You're knocking on their door first because they appreciate the history. They've been there longer. So, but it's also part of this identity and a cultural identity for the city. And so I felt the same way that there was going to be something going on with her, but I was glad to see that it really gives Agnes something to
Mm,
really lean on because
Yeah.
all the change that she has seen in her household.
She's
yeah,
so disoriented in society
Yeah.
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it fits her perfectly. I thought that was a brilliant, brilliant arc for her. That's exactly where she belongs. To be asked to be a vice president in the historical society is so meaningful to her, and you love seeing that because Ada understands what it's been like to not have
Yeah.
any agency, sway, enjoyable hobbies, recognition, or anything like that. So I think because Ada understands what Agnes might be feeling now, I think I'm one of those that believes Ada had a little something to do with, Mrs. Foster coming in and saying, no, no, Agnes, we want you to be a part of the historical society. Ada knows how important something like that is.
Mhm.
And to do that for her sister, I think also shows how much they love each other, how empathetic Ada is. And you know that Agnes recognizes that in Ada as well at the
Yeah.
end of this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And she knows how important it is to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Um, But yeah, Agnes, when you compared her, of course, to Maggie Smith's character in Downton Abbey, one upside is that Christine Baranski is considerably younger. So I think we will have this
Yeah.
character for longer. You know,
Yes.
Maggie Smith, her character, for anyone who doesn't know, she passed away in the last movie, and then the actress herself sadly passed away shortly after that.
Yeah.
But Agnes is going to be around giving zingers.
Yep.
Woohoo!
Going strong.
And I love also her relationship. She has a loving relationship with her son, but also they definitely get frustrated with each other and can have willfully not understand each other at times. And they have like a 1-2 punch with the zingers too, where she sets him up. Like she says, when you say these words, you stab me on the side. And he says, then it's lucky you have a skin of rhinoceros.
Yeah. Yeah, those two also. Yeah, they can parlay back and forth beautifully as well. They have great lines.
So let's talk
Yeah.
about Oscar Van Ryn, played by
Let's do
Blake
that.
Ritson.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sort of an enfant terrible to start. What do you think, Brian, of his character arc over these 3 seasons?
Yeah, it's one of the things that this show brings about is it's a show about identity, and in 2 levels. One about yourself, and you're asking, who am I? How do I maneuver in society? And the second part is class, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get to the new money. But Oscar is a great personification. If you look at all the characters, right, they're asking all those questions. But for Oscar, oh my gosh, like I am a gay man in a Victorian society. We did get, I believe, I can't remember if it was season 1, Oscar Wilde made an
Right. Yep.
appearance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. So his trial did not happen until the, I believe, 1890s. So we kind of speed that up, but we get a little poke saying, hey, hello, I'm Oscar Wilde. I kind of understand, Oscar, what you're going through.
Mhm.
And it's such tragedy and difficulty trying to have him maneuver and seeing him lose the love of his life like that in the carriage accident and quickly pivot, to start maneuvering himself
Right.
with
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to do next.
Right. Yeah, because we see him first. He has this love of his life, John Adams the fourth, who is
Yeah,
not the president, but supposed to be a descendant of that John Adams. So he's also obviously a forcibly closeted gay man, because simply that was just the way things were.
that's right.
And they are clearly in love, but they can't be together. So John Adams has to marry someone, and Oscar kind of loses him in a way, but he's like, I need to do the same. I need to get my beard. And he thinks he's found it in this woman, Maud Beaton, who seems like a
Yeah,
fun, pretty woman who will be a great companion. And then she takes him and his family and other investors who thus after that no longer trust Oscar, takes him for all they're worth, basically. And this
yeah,
is why we had that switch in positions in the Van Ryn household, between the 2 women, because Agnes invested in her son, and it did not pay off. And then we get that turnaround this season where John Adams helps Oscar reestablish himself.
yeah.
And Oscar first, what did he at the beginning of the season? He's like, I was not born to work, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
born something about, yeah, what is that?
I was born to be
born
rich,
to be
basically.
wealthy, but not
Yeah.
yeah.
born to become rich. I
Right.
don't know how to
That's
raise the
right.
money. I just am living in the money is more where he's comfortable.
Right.
That's right. That's right. You see a lot of that in this particular class of people where they, their fathers make the money or their parents make the money, right? Well, the father really in this time period. And then the son just kind of lives it off, and just lives the high life.
Right. And so we see him, eat some humble pie, and with John Adams' help, reestablish himself as an actual businessman, where he's finally earning his own money by helping other people manage theirs, ironically.
Yeah.
And then John Adams, just as they're having like this moment, I should have known as soon as he said to him, what did he say? Like, thank you so much for
You're my
everything.
savior. And
Yeah.
yeah, the whole scene, you're like, oh my God, something is going to happen because at
Walks
least,
into the
Yep.
street.
yeah, at least those two characters, at least they had that closing moment, where they
Yeah.
could really share their love and appreciation for each other and had that. And Oscar, just recognized yet again. And of course, he doesn't believe how much John actually loves him. And we see that even after the death when, Oscar meets with the sister and his sister, John's sister, was like, no, you were his world, you were his life, and he wants you to have this and he wants you to be happy and everything like that. And so I really found that very, very touching. But yeah, when I saw things getting really good with Oscar and he's doing well and he's like, thanks, John, and everything's great. It's like, oh yeah, you're right, Elysia. I should have seen that coming. John just takes a step out and that's it.
Bang.
It was
Bang.
so out of nowhere. Literally the carriage was not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can
And
dissect that scene to death, but we will not. Yes.
yeah. And that's fairly common in this time period where
Yeah.
carriages and horse accidents, even trolleys drawn by horses, in New York City, the trolleys didn't stop for men. You had to literally hop off. But for women, it will stop, but not for men. So it's a crazy scenario.
Yeah. And but then Oscar, he's ending the season on a high note, surprisingly, for the first time. Maybe he's been given a cottage. He was left a cottage in John Adams' will by his sister, who understands the situation and is supportive. And he also ends up finding, or rather, Larry ends up finding Maud Beaton, the woman who swindled him in the first place. And she's now working at the Haymarket, which was a real place. Brian, do you know about the Haymarket? Much about it?
Not as much, but it totally makes sense to have a place like this for sure, where you have it's almost like a club, but not really.
They called it like the Moulin Rouge of New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Where the upper class could go. You don't have to go to the red light districts necessarily. So it's like a pretty, respectful, unrespectful
Right.
place to go.
I mean, it's understandable that maybe certain people's fiancés don't understand that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this for Oscar was a key moment of grace where he found the woman. You saw just like how mad he was when he found this woman who just ruined his life.
Yeah.
And what does he end up doing? He ends up giving her some money to get out and try to get a new start somewhere
A
else.
ticket to Sandusky, Ohio, which Brian and I have been to many times.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
What might she do there in Sandusky?
Well, I mean, it became again, I think it was an extension of what Cleveland and the Millionaires Row
Okay.
and where they vacationed,
Yeah.
for them. So Sandusky being on a port on Lake Erie. And we, in modern day, Brian and I, we know it as Cedar Point, one of the largest.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the huge amusement
my
park.
father used to live near there. Yeah.
Yeah. So she could open up a little bed and breakfast or a little vacation thing for the middle, the lower classes, or maybe the middle
sounds
classes to enjoy the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Because it's on a lake.
That's right.
Right.
Lake
Right.
Erie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm wondering with Oscar's story, like we definitely have him set up in an interesting way, twofold. We have first of all this new alliance with Miss Turner, so we have to talk a bit about we're going to talk about the Russells mostly after the next break, but just to set up who Miss Turner turned Mrs. Enid Winterton is. She was Bertha Russell's lady's maid until she tried to seduce Bertha's husband. Obviously got fired.
Yep.
Wound up finding a wealthy older gentleman to marry and is now a wealthy widow, but was like Bertha was obviously not going to accept her into society because the woman tried to steal her man. But Oscar, he sees a potential alliance there because I think that was the other aspect of Maud Beaton swindled him for money, but was he going to swindle her by not being honest that he could never be sexually attracted to her.
Yeah, that was an interesting point in that farewell scene that we'll now call it between John and Oscar. Was John also called Oscar on his hypocrisy sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and said that, yes, she did all that to you and Maud, swindled you, but please, you were marrying her for her money or,
Right.
whatever. So, you do that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I had trouble with Oscar this season in a good or bad way. It was up and down so much,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't quite sure who he was at his core. And so I was really taken aback and upset that he lined up with, Miss Turner at
Mm-hmm.
the end. I was really angry about that, and I'm like,
Oh,
how
okay.
dare you? After, everything that you should be realizing about yourself, how dare you go back to your old ways and try to manipulate, blah, blah, blah. But then I now understand that, like we were talking about earlier, it is for his survival,
Mm.
because a
Yeah.
part of the arrangement is I can be myself in my cottage and you can be who you want to be there, but when we're in New York, we'll be together. And I now recognize too that Miss Turner is a delightful foul
Yes.
for Bertha. I mean, that's going to be
Yes.
spectacular. Just so fun
Yes.
to watch
Yeah.
Oscar and Miss Turner together,
Mm-hmm.
and just wreaking havoc in Bertha's life. So
Right.
it's going to be great.
Yeah. And I would say a key difference is that Miss Turner, Mrs. Winter, whatever, I think she knows that Oscar is gay, or at least she knows he's not
Hmm.
proposing a love match.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
proposing an
Yeah.
alliance.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
it's a
exactly.
more, so why
We're
not
honest.
let them each get from each other what they need?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very transactional on both sides. They understand pretty much what they're getting into and agreeing to it.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
he gets her wiggled back into society in exchange for influencing his cousin to forgive Larry, which was probably going to happen anyway. But he does put in a good
Right.
word. He does put in a good word. I'll give him that. He was like, she's going to go regardless. But if I just need a little guilt about going to the ball for reasons with her cousin Miss Fane, we'll talk about. But yeah. Um, my other question about his future storyline is, so we see
Hmm.
him getting established as a financial advisor, and I just have to note, for this might be a thing for next season, that Charles Dow started trading stocks in 1884 on Wall Street. So I wonder if we could be getting an origin of Wall Street story next season.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? And it may be another way of bringing in J.P. Morgan.
Hmm.
So J.P. Morgan is really the father, in some ways, of the modern Wall Street finance. He's a merchant banker. Not
Right.
many people might not know about that, but yeah, I mean, I could see. I'm wondering if it's a great segue to bring J.P. Morgan back into some scenes
Right.
because yeah, you gotta, if you're a respected businessman in Wall Street, you gotta turn your head to J.P. Morgan.
Mm. I
100%.
wonder if Oscar's going to be at odds with the Russells next season.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Mm.
Mm,
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
yeah, I
It's
do
like,
too.
and it's like, as we get into Marion next, if she does end up in the Russell family as well,
Hmm.
that's going to
Hmm.
pit once
Yeah.
again those families against each other.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, I definitely see some conflict, to say the least, um, between the J.P. Morgan and what Oscar's going to do and the Russells. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All
yeah.
right. So as you mentioned, yeah, well, let's talk about Marion Brooke, played by Louisa Jacobson. And also we're going to talk about one of the Russells here as it pertains to her, Larry Russell, played by Harry Richardson. As you pointed out, Louisa Jacobson is Meryl Streep's daughter. She's one of
Okay.
she's a few daughters who are actors, and they all look the same.
Yeah.
Need a scorecard.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so she was orphaned at the start of the series, and Ant's taking her in is what sets the whole story in motion. And Lisa, you mentioned she's been engaged 3 times. So what happened is, season 1, there was a Tom Rakes who was her parents' former lawyer from Doylestown, PA, and he moved to New York, he said, to court her. He proposes to her, but then he leaves her at the last minute for a woman with money. Ouch.
Yes, very Sense and Sensibility there. Yeah.
And then season 2, she was being pursued by, this is where we're starting to see what everyone calls Larian, the two of them together. But she, obviously her family does not like the Russells, or did not, they're get softening. But she was being pursued by a cousin, which was, of course, more than acceptable at the time, respectable even, named Dashiell Montgomery. And they weren't really in love, but it seemed like a good match. But he wanted her to be, quote unquote, more classic, what is it? Homestead home. What is it? The trad wife. He wanted her to be a trad wife. He wanted her to stop
Yeah.
teaching,
Yeah.
which is like, I would say teaching is her greatest passion.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like taking away the core of what makes her feel like herself. And he was still in love with his dead wife. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So
it was a
Yeah, not
shame
gonna
about
work.
the kid. She liked his daughter, Frances.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But it's better for Frances that,
yeah,
she moved on, and she says, I'm going for love.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was it looked like, as you were saying, a very typical situation for women like Marion to be into, especially when it's a widowed father with a child. I mean, gosh, you want to then marry someone who can just step right back in and
Mm-hmm.
replace and fill in that family dynamic, that society and what you've grown up with. So, yeah, so it was a good storyline, but I think that's where, again, she's beginning to, I think after that breakup, she's like, oh, I'm swear off, man, that's it. But again, she then explores and explores her own passions and interests in teaching and her work with Peggy, which we'll cover later. And, so yeah, she really begins to become more in herself, after that breakup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. She really begins to kind of find her place. And when they had the school scenes, I was trying to figure out who she was teaching.
Mm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like it might be kind of like lower class kids,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense because this is a little early, but you begin to see all these women reformists like Jane Addams and Whole House in Chicago, which was probably about 20 years in the future, but it's the same concept of trying to bring education and then arts, all these things that high society has lived and breathed, bringing it to the masses and bringing it to the lower classes. And but yeah, she loves it. And it's going to be interesting to see what develops if she could hold on to that through these relationships.
Yeah. And then we have her paramour, Larry. He has a past history himself. His is a little more, because men were allowed to have wilder past histories.
Yes, they were.
He had a love affair in season 2 with an older woman named Susan Blaine. So I guess he's going to be teaching her the ropes in the bedroom. But yeah, as throughout this season, we've had our ups and downs with this couple, and it came down to the ultimate conflict where they got engaged, and then that night he said, well, I'm going to Delmonico's to celebrate, a friend's bachelor party. And Delmonico's is sort of a more respectable establishment. But where did he actually go? He went to the Haymarket. And so she's told he went to a house of ill repute. And based on her history, she thinks of the worst. And so then she calls it off, doesn't even tell him why. She's just like, I'm calling it off. And he's like, tell me why. When he's away on business. So he comes back and finds all this. And then finally she talks to Jack, a character we'll get to in a moment. And Jack tells her, like, oh, yes, we went to the Haymarket. It was wild, but I was with him all night. And we just literally sat there and had a beer and talked. And so then she goes back to him and she's like, okay, I'm sorry. I jumped to the worst conclusion. And he's like, what, you don't trust me? If you don't trust me, how can we build a relationship on this? And then finally, both of their sets of parents start to get involved, where initially they might have disapproved of this match. They start to, and by parents, obviously, I mean her aunts. And Oscar, but where they might have initially disapproved of this match, by this point they're like, no, you kids, like we see the good in the other side and we want this to work out, and they kind of talk them into it. And in the final episode, I don't know how, Lisa, how would you describe where things stand between them at the end of this third season?
Um, I actually understand for sure where Marion is coming from, and the fact that
Hmm.
she's self-aware enough to be able to explain to Larry, I recognize this in myself. I have trust issues. I don't trust men, and you've been my friend and seen me and helped me through these breakups. So that is something that you should have known about me. So how dare you even lie to me, like on the night we got engaged? So
Hmm.
you should have understood that better and known that we shouldn't be starting off with a lie. But yeah, she didn't. You got to give him a reason. He just left for Arizona,
Yeah.
as I'm sure we'll talk later. She writes like a line saying, "No, it's off. Okay, best wishes." Just doesn't say anything. And the butler offers, "Oh, we can telegram this. He's going to be away for 4 weeks." No, no, he'll read it when he gets back. I mean, so she did not handle that very well. But then I also I have to say, give points to Larry for also being self aware. It's not often, especially in this time period, as you guys have talked about, you know, you do not have these conversations with people about your feelings and what you're going through. And for Larry to have the self awareness and to recognize that, okay, wait, this woman does not trust me. She flipped out. I mean, she broke off our engagement over me not being honest about where I was for dinner. How do
Hmm.
I know that she is not going to flip out when something else happens in my life or something happens in our relationship? Is a small disagreement going to blow up, and is she going to catastrophize everything? And that's so the fact that he was self-aware enough to see that in their relationship as well. And the fact that they both see their flaws and know each other so well because they were friends first. A relationship
Hmm.
very rare back in the day when things were arranged marriages. And I don't even think sometimes a couple even kissed until after they were married. So that's what I think makes this relationship so unique and terrific, is that because they were friends and knew each
Hmm.
other's lives and troubles and challenges. So I'm definitely rooting for them, and I think they will work through it. And also, I think, as I was saying earlier, Marion does need a partner, a life partner who will encourage her progressive ideas and her independence in such a way, and he's new rules, he's not old rules. So, yeah, I think it's a great match, and I'm rooting for them.
Okay, great. Um, so Larry, he's of course at the same time trying to establish his own career, and we'll talk about his work with his father when we get to his father after the break. But in addition to being a rising star there, really, he kind of really proved himself there this season. The other thing
Yeah.
is he has embarked on a project on his own, not on his own with a partner, but the partner's not his father, so he's making his own name in a way. He teams up with the footman from across the street, from the Van Ryn household, John upstairs, Jack downstairs, Trotter, played by Ben Allers, who has kind of been a breakout star in this show. Um, he's known online delightfully as Clock Twink.
I didn't know
Nice.
that. That's great.
No, that's great.
And this is because he's a footman, but he has a mechanical mind, and he basically invents a new mechanism to keep clocks from becoming less accurate over time, I think is the way to put it quickly. And with Larry's help, he sells it for 600,000. So I guess the 600,000 was for the two of them to split, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Right.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So he got 300,000.
Right. And that means that each of them, so he's worth 7 million, which apparently makes him has just less money than Ada does now or something like that.
Yeah, I think I do remember that's in the same ballpark of the family. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that was bothering me, there's a couple of things about Larry this season where I'm like, boy needs to grow up, but he's learning, he's learning. One of the things was he at first didn't want to include Jack in the clock meetings. Like, of course you need the guy who understands the mechanisms there. Like,
Oh my
what are we
God.
doing?
Yeah. And Jack
Yeah.
turned that on. It was such a great scene where he finally is in that meeting, and he's
Hmm.
like, Larry's not letting me talk. Should I even be there? And of
Mhm.
course, his fellow friends and staff are saying, yes, yes, speak up. And
Mhm.
Jack just turned it on and said, well, I'll tell you what, let me just leave this clock with you and you can then try it out for 10
Right.
days. You like it. And I'm like, ooh, you go, baby. Yeah. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
they
Exactly.
both seem to be learning with each other and
That's
growing
true.
as business partners and figuring it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Larry was like, okay, he knows what he's doing. I'm just going to let him go. He could have just said, no, no, and interrupt him. But he didn't do that.
Or
That's great.
berate him after the
Yeah.
fact
Or
and
berate him after.
either.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
But then in the opposite way also, Larry's the one who, like, Jack doesn't even know where to begin to ask for money. When they start saying saying numbers, Jack's face is like, "Oh my god." And
It was a great
the guy,
scene. Oh my god.
Yeah.
the
Like,
investor
no,
misreads it.
thinking of 20, maybe 15. And he's like, Jack's like, what, 15 bucks? 15
Yeah.
dollars? What are we talking about? Yeah, it's
Oh
great.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And yeah, and his face the other guy's like, "Oh, not enough? Okay, fine." And so it goes up to 600. It's like, "But not a penny more." Like, "Okay."
All right.
Okay, if you
That
insist.
works. That works.
Yeah. But it was so, I mean, one of the sweetest things about Jack's story is also that the entire Van Ryn household invested in him. He
Yeah.
They all chipped in a bit to his patents, both upstairs and downstairs, and he paid them all back royally, even
Mm.
even Armstrong, who didn't invest.
Yeah, yeah. She gave him one good piece of advice, or that little push that he needed. So yeah,
Mm,
I've been meaning to ask Brian this question. Is that Jack's storyline? I'm sure it was not unusual for the staff of a household to say there's got to be a better way to do this daily mundane task. Because that's what Jack's looking at now, which we'll talk about. He's going to start, I think, inventing the electric mixer.
right.
But he just looks and says, what gadgets, what can we do to improve our productivity or our efficiency? I wonder how many people, both in Britain and in America, at that class level, probably invented things and should have gotten patents, or maybe they did file and get a lot of patents, or did rich people just steal their ideas and get all the money for
Mm.
all the ingenuity.
Thomas Edison stole their ideas.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was good for Jack. I was happy that Jack's first foray into this was that he didn't get ripped off, and I think that wasn't that one of the concerns, that they were afraid that Larry was going to steal Jack's idea. Um,
Right.
Yeah.
but
That's right.
they were all very invested, in Jack and his promise. So it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great example of what America, right, can be,
Yeah.
where you
Mm.
have the downstairs staff trying to figure something out. A lot of these major inventors were not super rich,
Hmm.
but they, made enough money to get the tools and start tinkering around and then start working with trying to find investors. And it played out very good. That's another example of a thoughtful history where you have a situation like that with Jack to try to find, and he was just lucky enough to be across the street from someone
Mhm.
who was willing to do that and not rip you off and take the patent and make a
Right.
lot of money.
Because Marion would have rightfully called it off that time if he did
Yep.
that.
Oh my gosh. Yep. In a
Oh yeah.
heartbeat.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's yeah, I like the point that you make, Lisa, that the fact that he is working the clock was because he's trying to get up at a specific time because he needs
Hmm.
to wake up the the
Mhm.
household and everything. Um and the mixers, because obviously he spends a lot of time in the kitchen and he
Right.
knows the chef,
Yeah.
and so he has these special unique insights that the wealthy would not have because they don't
Right.
have that kind of contact with the production, the
Correct.
day-to-day tasks.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest inventions people forget about now is like the washing machine.
Mhm.
with the tub. Our grandma had one of those. I remember being in
Yes.
the basement and seeing this big tub with a
Yep.
little roller with a handle that
Yes.
you would squeeze out the water. It was so important. You save
Uh-huh.
so much time downstairs that if you can wash your clothes that fast, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting this is definitely one of the storylines I'm most excited about for next season, to just see him, now he was forced out of. It was sad. He's like, this is the only place I've ever called home, but there's the whole discussion about like, well, you can't be our footman and be wealthier than everyone but one other person in the house. Like there's something, it just feels wrong and off. And so this is another point where Ada, what do we pronounce it? Ada or
I'm
Ada? Why
saying
am I?
Ada.
Yeah,
Ada, I believe. Yeah.
that she suddenly, this is where she has to come into her head of householdness and gently push him out the door. And it
Yeah.
was nice to see Marion going with him to see where he was going to settle and helping him, figure out the ropes. And he's now hired a very small staff, like basically a housekeeper who make sure things are clean and he gets food.
Right.
That's right.
He's nice to
Yeah.
clothes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I do hope for the next season that we explore Marion and Jack, because Marion could be a good friend and
Yeah.
mentor as we move into. He's like totally awkward in society, but
Right.
she could play a big role in his life, and he could support her causes. Right. So that's going to be an interesting relationship, right? So
Yeah.
why don't you
Right
invest?
track. Yeah.
Yeah, you got, $7 million, and I'm doing this great work here. I'm teaching. But yeah, and I could see him opening up one of those rooms into his workshop where he can tinker away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like this is a guy who just can't. His brain he has a busy brain, and he's going to invent this electric mixer, and then automatically his brain's going to start picking at the next thing. So
Yep.
he could have a very bright future. I love a fish out of water story, so this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm waiting for him for next season to be in a ball and go, what am I doing? Help me.
And I'm glad things settled. His love life has been a tale of two maids. We had the Russell maid, Adelaide Weber, who, I hated her until the end of this season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Not a
hated
fan.
Jack with her, so I'm glad it didn't work out, but I'm also glad we'll talk about her and Gladys. But he's now finally, in season 1, the Irish maid Bridget in the Van Ryn household, he pursued her and she pushed him away. We as an audience found out in season 1 that's because she experienced sexual abuse as a child. And I don't think Jack knows this yet.
No, I can't imagine that being a conversation that they would have had.
No. She confided in Mrs. Bauer, but
I agree. I don't think she knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something to navigate, but I am rooting for Jack and Bridget.
Yeah. Do you both have a sense of how long Bridget has had a crush on Jack, do you think? Has it been since the beginning? Or I think she always seems to have, especially this season, it was very evident that she had a crush on Jack. So I don't know if she kind of came around to that.
I definitely thought so last season.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if I thought so when she was pursuing him, but then we found out that the weirdness was not about him, about something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was around for quite a while.
Yeah.
She had a crush on him for a while.
Yeah. And she was definitely jealous of him and Adelaide.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love that they have their kindly German cook in the Van Ryn household. Mrs. Bauer is the one that they all confide in. So she keeps a lot of the storylines together, and I'm sure Jack
has to have a glass of beer to end the day.
Yes.
That's right.
Came up
She's from Hanover. It's fair.
My storyline. So I'm not giving up my beer.
That's right.
Good for her.
Yeah.
But she does have poor taste in spiritualists. So maybe she's actually digging herself a grave with Ada this season, Ada.
How did she keep her job after that? I was like, questions. I was like,
she knows she's a good heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unlike Miss Armstrong, who does not really have a good heart. She is A head housekeeper. Well, she's the lady's maid for Agnes,
For Agnes,
which
yeah.
it's amazing she still has her job, and she has to thank Peggy for saving her job last season, even after she was just horribly racist to Peggy over and over again.
Yeah.
She's the only one who didn't invest in Jack, but he gave her the gift back. And she is the only one who signed at Ada's temperance pledge, which led to
That's
another
right.
classic exchange where she says to Agnes, "You never noticed I don't drink," and Agnes says, "I noticed you were boring."
Oh, that's true.
Classic Agnes. Classic.
But do
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do we think she's Miss Armstrong softening, especially after that gift from Jack?
No.
No. Why do
Yeah, possibly she genuinely, is shocked. I don't know. She seems to be narratively just one of those characters that we're going to see just too stuck in her ways, and life has taught her certain lessons, and it's
Yeah.
going to take a lot for her to really change her composition. So I think she'll just be that little pokey bear, foul, naysayer in the downstairs for a while.
I mean,
Yeah.
we see that she never got married. She spent a lot of her recent years taking care of a very infirm mother.
Mhm.
That's
Um,
right.
there's a place the hardness comes from. I don't know. I feel like there's a little
Right.
softening, maybe the beginning of peak of. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think there may be just a little bit softening around the edges, but I think Lisa's right that I think as a show, you need narratively speaking, you need that someone that's kind of more harder
Hmm.
to like and to push back on things, because if you have like an entire staff of loving, supportive people, right, it doesn't, you need that drama.
Where's the
Hmm.
conflict? Mhm.
Where's the conflict? That's right.
Um, one of my favorite low key, just in the background relationships that's been developing over the season is between the two households' butlers. We have
Yes.
in the Van Ryn household. So the Van Ryns are old money, so they do things the English way. They have an English butler, Mr. Alfred Bannister, and the Russells. They like to do things the French way because that's the new money, trendy way to do things. Although they have an American butler, Mr. Church, who, yeah, this job is basically Mr. Church. He's another story of climbing out of lower prospects, and so he's very grateful for this job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I always like when they get together
Hmm.
because it's just an opportunity to one, to kind of understand what their problems are running houses, even though their size of the houses are much different. They have similar problems. How do you maneuver situations? And it's just like a network meeting, right? They're networking
Yeah.
in the modern parlance.
Yeah.
And so I always enjoy when they're together just to figure out what's really going on downstairs.
And I think it's delightful that they help each other. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even when the two houses definitely didn't get along at all in the first season, it's really good that they help each other and learn from each other. I
Yeah.
rewatched the I started rewatching episode 1 of season 1, and the first
Mm.
people that we see are Alfred and a Bannister in church.
Hmm.
Mm.
They acknowledge each other across the street. So we know from right away, second one, that these two are, congenial and okay, so
Yeah,
it
but there
sets it up.
wasn't there a period where they were pitted against each other a bit
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
because of their mistresses were pitting
Right.
them against each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think they were able to kind of like, okay, how are we going to work around this?
Right. Yeah. And then just diving into the downstairs across the street, there's so much we can't get into, like a whole story from previous seasons about Mr. Watson, the valet who was fallen from wealth and then restored to wealth with his
Yeah.
daughter and everything. But a story that's being set up for future seasons is we have the chef who introduces himself as a French chef, Monsieur Baudin. And then we find out his name's Josh Borden and he's from Kansas.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing. I'm so glad that Bertha forgave him for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we see a romance brewing with Mrs. Bruce, the housekeeper on the Russell side. But while he is finally widowed, we find out that she has a husband who's basically in a mental institution. So I assume that's something we're going to see more of, what that looked like in the 19th century.
Oh, see, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly. How psychology and psychiatry in the early Gilded Age operates. And I felt really sad about this relationship because I want to make it work, right? It's like, oh, and then you find out that she has a husband. It's like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. And so it would be really interesting to see if we get behind the scenes with that husband who's in the institution and how it works.
Yeah.
I will say that Downton Abbey and Julian Fellowes spoiled me on the whole downstairs. I just love those characters in Downton Abbey, and I did not care as much about the ones in the Russell household. He did quite well with the Van Ryn, as we just talked about, but I just the downstairs folks in the Russell household were probably my weak link.
Yeah.
I mean, they're delightful. Again, Broadway performers, but the acting was great, but there isn't much really good storyline for me on that.
Yeah, I think they didn't, especially, we had the Mr. Watson storyline, but now he's gone. So I think that's why they're probably setting up for the future more story, because we just haven't had as much attention paid to them.
Right.
No. And I made that in my notes that we had, in some ways, less drama with the staff this season because there was so much drama upstairs. And I also wasn't really hooked with the storyline about the leaker to the press. It's like, okay. But it wasn't really hooking me as much as all the other good stuff that was happening. It's like, okay, whatever,
Yeah. I'm sure Bertha's upset about that. Yep. That tracks.
That's right.
Well, we're going to take a break and get into the Russells. On the other side of the break, we're going to head upstairs across the street. See you in a sec. All right, we're back, and let's start as the season started with Gladys Russell, played by Thaisa Farmiga. And this is mostly based on a real historical character named Consuelo Vanderbilt. And I'm going to unleash Brian to tell us a bit of history about that if you like. But just to set it up, she starts the story in season 1 as a debutante. And she becomes, in season 3, one of the famous dollar princesses, where she is forced. She wanted to marry a boy named Billy Carlton, but Billy chickened out. Billy sucks, by the way. I was totally
awful.
100%.
Not on board with Billy.
No, total wimp.
Yeah, so frustrating.
I'm glad that doesn't come out. She deserves better.
Yep.
I mean, it was a tough watch, though. The fact that she is, her mother has big ambitions for her to marry a British noble, because at this time, obviously, the British need money and the Americans want titles. So she marries Hector Vere, 5th Duke of Buckingham, played by Ben Lamb, who is also the Christmas Prince, by the way.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. It was driving me nuts. I'm like, I know this guy.
He's great.
Yes, great. And it helped me soften into, especially now, what he's become now. It's like, oh no, that clocks.
Yeah, and so basically, he wants money. She doesn't even want a title, but her mother wants her to have a title. She wants to be the mother of a duchess, and basically, the negotiating's done through the parents. And Gladys is not happy about this, and she's crying, walking down the aisle, and she's being walked down the aisle by George, her father, who had promised that she could marry for love the way George and Bertha did. So that was a real tough emotional start to the season. We know also that she, as I said, is based on Consuelo Vanderbilt, who married the real Charles Spencer Churchill, the ninth Duke of Marlborough. And again,
Yeah.
in real life, based on, her mother pressured that to happen. And it was, yeah. Do you want to talk more about that, Brian?
Yeah. Lorehounds Unleashed. So, this is not unusual for the landed aristocracy in this time period to find, money in America, because you had, for the British aristocracy, land was everything. Land meant status, which meant power. But the problem was, even starting in the 1880s, the price was going down, rents were going down, they were over mortgaged. So Hector had to find a new infusion of cash. So he goes to America and finds one. And it's really interesting. Gladys, I think, is a parallel to his mother, right? Because
Mm,
she had to break into the society and help create a new society or overturn the 400. And she wants the same thing for Gladys, right?
mm-hmm,
She wants her to break into British aristocracy so they can be uh, and set set the standards, be part of that group. So again, kind of that class identity of the show, where you get to be kind of identify the culture, where you know you set the standards to create a common identity. So she wants that for her daughter. You get to
mm-hmm.
be hobnobbing with all these rich, well, not so rich now, or rich, less rich people.
Right.
Uh,
But these, yeah, like they're the
yeah,
celebrities of their day, I suppose.
exactly, for sure, and they still are influential, but
Mm-hmm,
they're getting marginalized. Starting in the 1880s, they're getting more marginalized, and they're seeing it. The nobles are seeing it. They're seeing it before their eyes that things are falling apart. And what do? They're scrambling for money. So throughout this season, I was just heartbroken for Gladys. It's like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
she really deserves it. And you could also see with her father, I think
mm,
he wanted her to find
mm-hmm,
love and ideally to stay in New York City because
mhm,
he adores her. Then he goes to England and it's like, I'm never going to see you again.
yeah.
It's just so tragic.
Yeah, they played that so well. It was absolutely devastating. Gladys was in denial for so long. Like, literally, even in her wedding dress, she was in denial that this really had to happen. That there was no winning against Bertha. She was going to have to
Yeah.
go through with this marriage. And the scene of the wedding and her crying, which again, from what I understand, was based on Consuelo Vanderbilt,
mm-hmm,
who felt the same
Yeah.
way, who was married off. And so it just was absolutely heartbreaking. And Larry and George, as I know we'll talk about later, but they were also heartbroken for Gladys. They wanted to be able to marry for love. I was definitely worried about Gladys because very typical. This hasn't changed what parents want for their children. And Gladys never seemed to have the disposition that her mother has. You need a
Hmm.
lot of confidence and bravado and quick thinking in order to be a Bertha. And I never really saw
Hmm.
that in the personality of Gladys. So I was so worried that Gladys was going to get just crushed and step
mm-hmm.
and as we'll talk in a little bit, I know that it's been nice to see Gladys go, oh, okay. She has absorbed some of the lessons and some of the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the real history of Consuelo Vanderbilt is that she was indeed forced into this marriage and cried down the aisle. And she later wrote I mean, she was this was recorded by other people at the time, but she also wrote an autobiography that gives
That's
us a
right.
lot of information about her story.
Yeah.
And so she was married to this man for a long time, and they had two kids. But then they became separated at some point because it was
That's
never
right.
about love,
Right.
and she was making a real name for herself in British society. But they were living in separate households, and eventually finally the marriage could be annulled. And one of the things that happened is her mother stepped up and said, I pressured her into this marriage. And
That's right. That's
that
right.
helped ease the annulment.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you are seeing these marriages, to no surprise, fall apart and end up in divorce. So I think
Mm-hmm.
in her case, I think it was around the 1890s, late 1890s, that she was able to get away from that marriage. And same thing, and it was happening all over Europe too. I think some of the French
Mm-hmm.
nobles were marrying American heiresses, and they getting divorced 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
Yeah. And we'll see. She eventually, the Consuelo Vanderbilt eventually ended up with a dashing pilot. So we'll see if any dashing young pilots enter the
There we
story
go.
at any point. But it also, the fact that they don't call her Consuelo Vanderbilt, they call her Gladys Russell. So they can do whatever they want with her story. With these,
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
And Lisa makes a good point as we're talking about this. I think part of it is like a generational thing, right? The Bertha, had to make money, right? Along with her husband, they had to scrap for it and rise, but
Earn
they
it,
didn't
work for
earn
it.
it exactly. And you have Oscar and you have Gladys who don't have the skills to earn it. Larry's a little different, as we'll catch later, but
Both
he's a
learning.
man
They're
too.
both learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're both, yeah. So they have to kind of learn it in a different way.
Yeah. And for me, one of the most satisfying storylines this season was infuriating, then satisfying, was her journey with Lady Sarah Fear, played by Hattie Morahan, who in real life, the real Duke had an aunt called Lady Sarah who played this role in the real Consuelo's life. In the show, it's his sister, and she's just basically, I am in charge of this household, and this American upstart isn't coming in and taking my place, even though by marrying the Duke, she is the Duchess. And as I said, there can only be one Duchess. Um, and apparently, that story where she finally stands up to her and says, "Are you unwell? Because you would not end dinner before I say so unless you're unwell, right?" That's apparently a real story that Consuelo said to Lady Sarah, the aunt.
Yeah, wasn't there a Queen Victoria story? She either ate very fast or very slow. And of course, no one
Mm.
at the table can, like here, stand up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wait until
Yeah.
the Queen is done. And I think she ate very fast. And so she would
Right.
sit down in like 15 minutes, be done with her meal and stand up. And everyone else is just enjoying themselves and
Right.
talking and drinking and chatting. They're like, oh my gosh, we can't finish our food. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was great to see
Mhm.
that play out there. It was just perfect. Gladys saying, "Are you unwell?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was great with Bertha coming over to exert a little
Oh,
influence there, and not
Yeah.
to step in and save her daughter, but to like give her daughter the pep talk, like,
right.
you are my daughter. I know you can
Yeah.
stand up to this bitch.
Yes, let
Yeah.
me remind you of the household you grew up in. They modeled that behavior for her. And so for Bertha to say, honey, you know how this household should be run. You've lived in it. So
Yeah.
go.
And I love that
Exactly.
she had this ally on the British side, Lord Mildmay. And he, even at the end, he's like, he doesn't say "you go, girl," but he basically does.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Exactly. Yes.
My one complaint about Gladys's story, though, is that Consuelo was apparently an intellectual, and we haven't really
Mhm.
seen what does Gladys do other than fret about boys.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I wrote this as well. It's like Hector also is a guy that just is more of a laid back kind of dude. He's
Hmm.
not hanging around. He's not going to, you don't see him become viceroy of India. It's just not going to happen, right? You're not going to be, I don't even know. I guess maybe he's in the House of Lords, I guess, but
Right.
he's not a political animal, right? And he's not. So, what are the two of them? Yeah, what is Gladys going to be doing? I guess she's going to, one thing I think as we look forward to the next season is going out, and I believe this is true about the Vanderbilt, is that she did go out to the landed estate and met with people, and they bonded pretty well. They liked her a
Right.
lot. So I think maybe we'll see some of the people who are farming
Mm-hmm.
on the estate. Maybe that's what will happen. She'll be interested in farming, but that's not very dramatic.
I mean, this was a recurring storyline in Downton Abbey, so we
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
Julian Fellowes can do it well. It'd be interesting to see what new take he puts on it, considering
Yeah.
it's, as we said, 30 years earlier, and yeah, he's not going to
Mhm.
repeat the plots from before.
Yeah.
The other thing about Gladys is we already mentioned Adelheid, but she became likable when she was Gladys. She became Gladys's lady's maid, and she was Gladys's only American connection living in the UK until Lady Sarah fired her and sent her away so she could have a British maid that she could control her through. And then Bertha's like, no, she gets her American back in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
love it. Yeah.
she's Duchess, and she should have,
Yeah.
say in who was
Yeah.
going to be her lady's maid. So
Exactly.
And I thought the stars in her hair were lovely,
I
okay?
did too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
This is a new age, people. Learn.
Yeah. It's funny to see, even fast forwarding through Downton Abbey to the 20s and seeing the Lady
Mhm.
Mary pushing fashion buttons, and people are
Yes.
like, she cut her
Mhm.
hair.
Yes. Oh, that was such a big deal.
All right. So turning to Gladys's parents, George and Bertha Russell, played by Morgan Spector and Carrie Coon. In some ways, I feel like they are the heart of the show, like
Yes.
their relationship, and that was the tough
Yeah.
thing about this season, seeing them at odds so much.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was, remind me, was it a love match for them? It would have
Yes.
to have been. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that they are not historical figures, but they are, Bertha Russell is based on Alva Vanderbilt, Consuelo's mother, and Alva Vanderbilt was indeed someone who knew money, who pushed her way on society, and eventually took it over, as we're starting to see happen at the end of the season. And George Russell, he's based on a lot of the so-called robber barons of this
Yeah.
period. You could say also Vanderbilt, but more so, mostly he is modeled off of Jay Gould.
Yes.
And
Right.
the interesting thing about this mix is it makes it hard to tell where their marriage drama is going to go, because Jay Gould had a very happy marriage and Alva Vanderbilt got a divorce.
Yeah. That's right.
So do you have any
That's right.
predictions?
Oh, well, we know Bertha won't go down without a fight. So, yeah, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later about the effect of George's brush with death. But yeah, a great power couple, and great allies and great partners, which I think began to fall apart. And I think it's always been that George has handled the business, and he won't quite bore others or Bertha with those kinds of things, but he always respects her for what she does. But the break comes when Bertha takes that same kind of control. Oh, honey, you don't need to worry about the family and the kids. Just no, let me handle it, and thinking that was okay because that's how George handled the business. Well, for Bertha, her family, her children are her business. And
Mhm.
so she made a lot of decisions and made a lot of plays and made a lot of deals,
Mhm.
and did not even tell George what was
Right.
going on. And in the meantime, as Brian alluded to earlier, George had a very close relationship with Gladys. And the fact that Bertha was making these business decisions for
Mhm.
Gladys without any sort of consent or agreement or discussion with George is what created the downfall. And even when George did say, I want her to marry for love and I want her and you're being too hard on her, Bertha would have none of it. And it was
Mhm.
the same
Yeah.
behavior that George would have with his business, even when the Clays and the Larrys would tell him, no, that's never going to work. George's attitude is, yes, I will make it work by sheer will.
Right.
And Bertha's the same way, but Bertha, as he had said, I think in the last episode, where I am that way, I'm ruthless in business, but you're ruthless with family. You're ruthless with people we love. And you can't be that way. He now understands, that this matters to him. So that's what happened, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we got to see some insight into Bertha also when we got a Merritt Weaver sighting as Bertha's sister, Monica O'Brien.
Yay.
Oh, Merritt Weaver.
And so this is a glimpse into where Bertha came from. Now, Lisa, you had a very excited reaction.
Oh, well, I mean, again, we all know, those of us who, watch a lot of television and film, sometimes you hire an actor very specifically because,
Hmm.
even if she's only going to have a few scenes, it will
Hmm.
make an impact. And
Yeah.
Merritt Weaver is one of my
Yeah.
favorite actresses, so she was really great. I see that as something I hope will pop back up in season 4. I don't know if it will be Merritt Weaver coming back at anything, but there's obviously
Yeah.
something in the childhood. So it was great to see that peak
Yeah.
with her sister coming in for the wedding.
I loved
Yeah.
she thought she was going to get away with wearing one dress until Bertha had her spilled coffee on her. It wasn't hot. Don't worry, it wasn't hot.
Yeah,
Right,
that was
right.
great.
And we found out, and this is historically accurate, Bertha changes 5 times a day. She
Yeah.
changes the right letters. Why?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because she can, right? Because she has money to
Because she
buy 5 dresses for a day,
Yeah,
right?
but she's also
Yeah.
expected to, is the point she's
Exactly.
trying to make to her sister. And her sister's like, this is not the world we come from, honey. I don't know what games you're playing, but nobody needs that many dresses.
That's right. And that's exactly what Lisa was saying. It just because of that character, you can see the kind of lower class roots that she comes from. And of course, Alva Vanderbilt herself comes from, I believe, the South, and not huge amount of money. She had to scrape up and she had to marry up for that. So I don't know if we know Bertha is from the South. I can't remember.
Well, we don't really know much
Yeah.
about
Okay.
her other than she
Yeah.
came from humble beginnings, and this is her
Right.
sister. This is our first real insight, I think, into
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a great insight to
yeah.
her background.
And I've noticed the rest of society is all like, she has a sister.
Yeah.
And of course we have the storyline that you said you didn't love with the French lady's maid, Miss Andre, who is selling Russell's secrets. So obviously Bertha's going to need a new lady's maid next season.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I reacted to that storyline simply because I'm a Bridgerton fan, and the entire reason and existence of Bridgerton is because of the newspaper and the gossip pages, and so I'm like, oh yeah, no, yeah, it's just of course that happened.
You are no Lady Whistledown.
No, exactly.
Been there, done that.
Brian, was it you who was saying you were very excited about the Tale of Two Opera Houses storyline that we got in previous seasons?
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'm an opera fan, and it was great to include that, I think, mostly in season 2, where you had the great example of old money versus new money, where you had the Academy of Music, where the Astors and the Vanderbilts, that's where you went, and that's where the premier opera singers would go. Well, then comes in the Russells, and let's build a new. I'm not welcome here. Let's build a new one at a nicer place. And then you see the fight in season 2 of trying to get people from the old money into this new Met Opera. And now it's a world class opera, one of the best on the planet.
My grandmother used to dance at the New York Met.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, very
In like
cool.
the
Very cool.
1930s, I guess. Yeah.
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 There definitely was
Exactly.
some criticism of that storyline in this season because we know how it ends, because it was based historically.
Right.
So we know
Yeah.
Bertha is eventually going to win. But like
Yeah.
this and other shows, but how did she win?
Yes.
Exactly.
Is-
Exactly.
What's
That's
great.
right.
That
Yeah.
was a highlight of season 2 for sure, that whole
Yeah.
storyline. Yeah, and that's where we see Bertha. That's one of the main ways in which she's being catapulted to the front of the pack.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It was a great vehicle for her to get ahead and get into society like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, while Bertha's getting ahead in society and their son is starting his own businesses, George Russell, who's been, the breadwinner of the family and the financial force behind them all, his business is running into some trouble this season. Now, I know you wanted to talk, Brian, about the bank crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Panic of 1884, and it wasn't as bad as some of the other ones that were before and after, but it did create problems. It was part of a kind of growing depression. Like 1 in 10 businesses at this time failed. Farmers were really struggling to make ends meet, and it made sense then. With and in Wall Street, it had the President Ulysses S. Grant, Grant and Ward, his son helped create Grant and Ward, which was a Wall Street broker firm, and it was kind of like a scheme, and it went belly up, and President Grant lost all his money, and he was literally a millionaire in the morning, and had like $10 in his wallet at the end of the
Ooh.
day. It was that
Oh.
fast.
While he was president?
Well, no, this was after his
Oh,
retirement.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that helped him say, okay, I'm going to write my memoirs. So then it will sell. And then my kids and my wife can live on with good money. And he worked with Mark Twain, and the rest was history. But so it was the Mercantile Bank, and it was the Grant and Ward that started some panics in Wall Street. So it made sense that George really had trouble finding money, capital for his railroad ideas, because people were not going to do that in a panic at this time. So it fit really, again, another example of a thoughtful history there.
Yeah. And they use another real life historical figure who you referenced earlier, JP Morgan.
That's right.
And he apparently, we see in this season, at one point, he gets all of his colleagues to come to his remote house and then says, and now you're trapped here until we all make a deal. And apparently JP Morgan did pull stunts like that? Similar?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, being a merchant banker, he was the guy who basically, when all these railroads, wanted to go kind of more public and sell stocks, he was the guy who helped do that. And he was a well-respected person. All the businessmen on Wall Street respected him. He wasn't the richest man on the planet, but he was making, like, ready for it, $15 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do it because he would get stock from the railroad, or he'd get fees for brokering these new entities. So like the Vanderbilts, they went into railroads, and they made a deal with JP Morgan to create a public trust that sells railroad stock. So he was the guy. So it totally makes sense that he would bring everyone to his retreat, and they would listen to JP Morgan. He was the powerhouse. He was the most respected man on Wall Street.
Played by the great Bill Camp.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, the cast
he was brilliant.
I'm sure. Sorry, I do have all the names of the characters in here, but the cast is so huge. I haven't been shouting them all out. And then we also have, and I believe this is a fictional character, Mr. Russell's, his personal secretary up to this point is Richard Clay. But basically, I mean, I think George does him a bit wrong in basically saying, if you can't get this done, you're out. But then at the end of the day, Larry, his son, proves that maybe he wasn't 100% doing his job. And now we see how quickly Clay turns on George after and basically tries to ruin his business. And thank the gods, Larry's out in Arizona and decides, like, no, I really want to get a new survey done of these copper mines, and finds out there be copper. So,
yep.
Which was a very in-demand metal. It remains so, but especially at the time.
Yeah, copper was used for the telegraph wires and electricity wires.
Ooh, yep.
Needed the copper.
I'm kind of surprised that George didn't see that coming. Like, Clay knows where all the bodies are buried. And maybe not
Hubris.
fire him,
Yeah.
Or do it more nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not the most smart move that you could do. I think it was emotional, maybe, a decision there.
For sure.
But then somewhere in all these business dealings is probably the source of a mystery setup for next season, which is, well, okay, you were bringing up Dallas, who shot JR?
JR?
Who shot JR?
Who shot
For the record, I was
GR?
correct on Who Shot JR, one of my pop culture
you were.
pride points growing up. Anyway, go ahead.
Internet points for Lisa.
Yep.
Well, now the question for next season is who shot GR? Someone just shows up and shoots him point blank. And luckily, someone else we're going to be talking about, Dr. Kirkland, who happens to be a Black physician, Howard grad. Which just, by the way, Howard is often called the Black Harvard. And it just goes to show how far back and how deeply rooted Howard is in American history.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily he was across the street for reasons we'll discuss. And he ends up coming over and saving George's life with quick action, just being good at his job. Even though this was a great risk to him, because if a white patient died, the Black physician could have faced even the death penalty, I would think.
Yeah, criminal and civil.
Yeah.
Damages,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But so
can I geek out here?
Yeah,
Elysia?
yeah. I just want to throw in that this
Go
is
ahead.
a moment, by the way, where Marion earns Bertha's respect.
Yes.
Because
exactly.
she's just like willing to get her dress bloody helping out George.
Yeah, when he's like, I need someone to put pressure on the wound, and Marion just jumps on top of George and puts it down.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the important key right there for her to change her minds about Marion. That was really well done.
Yeah, but Brian, please teach us about medical history.
Yeah, so when Dr. Kirtland went into the room, I was like, okay, you got to do this right. Because so he went in there and basically is just saying, don't wash your hands. Don't wash your hands. And he didn't. So the home that I worked at, James Garfield, he was shot, hit the back, ricocheted off one of his ribs and lodged behind the pancreas. So the bullet was not near the wound. So the doctors poked and probed using their hands and their instruments that were not washed. He died of infection. So I was really cheering that they did not bring in water for Dr. Kirtland to wash his hands. They pulled out the instruments and a cloth. Who knows when these were last used, right? The cloth was kind of clean, but, it's like, who knows when this was last used. So he poked and used his hands and Marion went in there and she didn't wash her hands. And both doctors were right 100% when they said infection is going to be the problem, because it is, because they just didn't really think about germs in that way. And this was 1881 when Garfield was killed. So it was only 3 years. So it fit. They did a fabulous job. Kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that Dr. Kirkland, maybe sometimes when you are not, like, the white doctor comes in later and he's very impressed, and he does warn, like, could be a case of infection. I was thinking, like, yeah. But I sometimes, when you are not in the center of the establishment, sometimes it pushes you to be a bit more progressive in your treatments too.
Yeah.
So I did note that it seemed like he was like, because I think sterilization was just beginning around this point, not washing your hands, as you said, but like just that he was maybe being a little more careful even than the white doctor would have been, especially because his life was on the line too.
Yeah. And I did notice his use of instruments rather than putting his fingers in the wound that the doctors did for Garfield. So I thought, now this is smart. He's really, I think, as you said, Elysia, he's kind of up with maybe using the instruments a little bit more and of course suturing and things like that, which, it was impressive.
Yeah.
What did you guys make of a comment that he made right when Dr. Kirtland was helping George? He said, "Oh, I've treated hundreds of bullet wounds."
Yeah.
I don't think that's something the white doctor
would
have as much experience with. And so
he probably has more
Probably that he knew what to do. You could tell, and he did make that comment. Yeah, how can we help it?
Yeah.
I've treated hundreds of bullet wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
don't know.
wonder. I guess he was too young during the Civil War, right?
He
When
was, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is almost 20 years ago. So it wouldn't be the Civil War.
Yeah.
He was a well-to-do family.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, he's the doctor of the Black community, and not everyone is going to be well-to-do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so we get George and Bertha. They wind up, George shows up at she gets to take over the big ball of the season from Lena Astor for reasons we'll discuss in a minute. And George shows up to basically put on a good face. He doesn't want people to know that he was shot.
As if there was this whole commotion in the middle of the night. All the households are peeking out their windows. What's going on? People are rushing in and out. It happened at the club, and they're, oh yeah, that's not going to get out.
Good thing Miss Andre's gone. But I don't know. Like this feels like the beginning of toxic masculinity too. Like, I didn't get shot. I am impervious. Like,
that's right.
Or he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to know that people are against him. He doesn't want that out. I don't know.
He didn't want it to harm his business because obviously he is the business, and so if he's hurt, and shot near death, then stock and everything goes boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. You want to keep a lid on the health of the creator and CEO. Yeah.
Yeah. So he shows up at this ball and puts on a smiley face, and then Bertha seems shocked afterward that he's like, no, I'm still really mad at you. I'm still moving out. And he's like, you made me turn on my daughter, and I don't see how I can forgive that. Is there hope for them next season?
Yeah, I had a real problem with this scene, and I rewatched it several times, and I really think, for me, being the Lorehound nerd that I am, the way that George and Bertha talk to each other, or the way that George talks to Bertha throughout the time, being supportive of her, and the cadence and the way that he looked at her, he's like, we're all here together just as you wanted. And the way he said it was seemingly supportive in the way that he's been with his wife for the past 2.5 seasons. So I didn't get that at the ball there had been a fundamental change in George's worldview. So I didn't get that. So that's why I really had a hard time understanding, the next day it's so, no, I'm still mad at you. And I'm like, what? Where'd that come from? But again, what I brought up earlier about Gladys, he made a comment to her, I think at some point, that, at the ball, he did say that I do have a new way of looking at things. And Bertha felt that was an affirmation that, I now see, Bertha, why you did what you did, and the Duke and Gladys and everything. That's how she interpreted it. And that's how I interpreted it. And then the next morning, George was like, no, that's not what I meant. I meant, I do not think that what you did was okay. And my worldview, my change of view is that you have too much power and don't care much about people you love. That was his paradigm shift. And I was Bertha. I was like, where'd this come from?
Yeah. And then we had a thoughtful discussion about that on Discord, about that scene. And I'm also was in the same boat as Lisa. I was a bit jarring. Psychologically, I think it makes sense of what happened, right? But I think narratively, I was a little jarred, right? Yeah. Maybe we needed a bridge, a little scene where there was some conflict, or not maybe an argument, but maybe a discussion that would bridge us to the next day. So I have to, because of that, I had to create a couple theories. One, Ross, George did see at the ball his daughter, who he adores, who's now in England, and he wants her in New York City. He's seeing all these lovely couples, and it's like, oh man, this, and he changes his mind. The other theory, I wonder if he was high during the ball.
Yes.
Right?
With the laudanum. Yeah, we didn't talk about the laudanum.
That's right. So he might have been drugged, that he was more Hey, I'm going to go
Oh,
with the
hey.
flow. This is great. You did a really good job, Bertha. Good job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were talking also on the Discord about that close up on the laudanum and the worries that there might be an addiction plotline
yeah,
developing.
Yeah, in season
Yeah.
4,
yep,
for sure.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, I think it's coming.
I was in the other camp where I wasn't surprised by it. And I think part
Okay.
of it is also just because of the history, but also I thought like there's going to be a sour ending to one of these storylines because
Mm,
this is not the final
Yeah.
season.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I thought maybe it would be Dr. Kirkland. I really didn't want it to be. I'm glad
Mhm.
it wasn't. We'll talk about that. But this made sense to me, and I didn't think
Okay.
the way he was behaving before he went to the ball. I didn't think he had suddenly changed his mind. I just thought that he was putting on his face for the public.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really hope that they go the Gould route with
Yeah.
them next season, where they make up, and because they're such a fun couple
Oh, they
to
are.
see.
Yeah, they are.
They're
Yeah.
both powerful characters, and to see them work together, and
Mhm.
that's the best part.
Well,
Yeah,
if I may
exactly.
be David here, who tunes in on these production values, that morning scene even looked so different.
Mm,
It was
Mm-hmm.
blanched out, and
mm,
there's such rich color in everything, in the production, in the sets, and the costumes, and then the morning scene was just like, do you have lighting in here? It didn't even look, artistically like
Hmm.
it belonged to the episode. And that's why I think my first Discord comment was, "Oh, did you realize you're getting a season 4 and then came back and filmed that scene?" That's what it looked like. So
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's as you said, Alicia. They are the heart of this series,
100%.
and yeah, and they should. I don't want if they're apart and end up he's living at the club for the entire
Hmm.
season. It's just gonna be bad. I think for the show.
Right.
I'm really rooting for them to be
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they know it, and I wonder if this. We were thinking Oscar might end up being a foil for them both with his alliance with Turner and
yeah,
his maybe getting closer to JP Morgan with his financial
Mhm,
advising. Um, Maybe something like that pushes them back together. Or I was
right.
hoping that
hmm,
that Gladys would bring them back together now that she's in a better place in her marriage. It's not quite so miserable as she
Mhm.
feared.
yeah,
Yeah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
yeah.
I just love to see Carrie Coon and Morgan Astor working, or sorry, Morgan Spector working off of each other. Just
Oh, they're
their
Mm.
great.
their chemistry and their fire. They're both, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, um, so yeah, just to wrap up our discussion of the White Society, we made some references to the classic old money. Even and we've even said like the question of old money when it comes to Lena Astor. She was also on her own a bit of a social climber who married into money. She's based on the real Caroline Schermerhorn Lena Astor. So she it was known for the most of the golden age as the head of, we've used this term, we've thrown it out there, the 400. Brian, what's the 400?
yeah. So Lena was instrumental in stitching together and defining culture in New York City. So the 400 are the, shall we say, approved list of people that could come together. Maybe it's balls, maybe it's fundraisers, but they are accepted society of these 400 people. So it's closed off, and Bertha knows it, and she has to fight to get inside and break the 400.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
we see in real life, yeah, Mrs. Astor, she lost influence, especially because she wouldn't step aside, much the way that Lady Sarah wouldn't step aside for Gladys. She wouldn't step aside for her niece in real life. Here we see
yeah,
some other factors at work we'll talk about in a second. But her ally in all of this, in the creation of the 400 in real life, the person who invented the term the 400 is Ward McAllister, played by Nathan
yep,
Lane, who's always been a favorite of mine.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Us too.
yeah. And he said basically, I think 400 people can fit in Mrs. Astor's ballroom, so only those
Yeah.
400 people matter.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
And he
right.
was also another Southern social climber. But he was known for his taste and for his thorough knowledge of etiquette and high class entertainment. So everyone would turn to him to look to him to see how were things done in
Mhm.
throwing these parties and things
What's
like that.
acceptable and yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I can understand to a certain degree why he thought like, I'll write a book about it. And this again is a real book he wrote called Society as I Have Found It. Now this was written in 1890, so they pulled it
Yeah.
forward a little bit, this part of the plot. But yeah, Brian, what are your thoughts on his book and the reactions to it?
Yeah. I wonder if he wrote it. I don't know if it's like a personality flaw where he wanted to kind of get the attention, right? Sometimes people write these scandalous books for money. Maybe it's money, maybe it's notoriety, right? And as he said in the series, I just wanted to show people, kind of open the door to show how maybe crazy this society is. But it's not a smart move, clearly, because he gets banished, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if it's a certain psychological thing. He felt, he wanted, maybe there was some, I don't know as much about McAllister, so I don't know if it's a
He
psychological flaw. Go ahead.
I mean, I think it was probably a fame thing. He ended up not even
Yeah,
getting that much money for it, but I
no,
don't think personally he would have done it if he had realized in real life, I'm saying, if he would have realized how far from grace it would cause him to fall. I think he
Mhm.
didn't
yeah,
expect people to react so badly to it
yeah.
because it's
Maybe it's a
not,
hubris.
they made
It's
it
like,
more of a gossipy book in the show than it was in real life. In real life, it's more dry pie etiquette, but there are some things, he says.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was all Harry Truman, wasn't it? No, the Truman Capote,
mm,
yes. Truman Capote. That's
who
right.
did that the same thing where he wrote a
Yeah,
book, about all of the New York socialites that he, dined with, and they cut him out, and he's like, "What?"
mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess our biggest insight into it is how, McAllister said, "I made you."
Mhm.
yes,
Society would not exist. You
Right.
wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me, and so I don't know if there was just that little bit of, "Hey, give me my due," or,
Yeah.
but yeah, I how could he not
Yeah.
think he would be invited back into society after writing that book?
yeah,
In real
yeah,
life, the break with Mrs. Astor, they were, they invented the 400 together. They ran the 400 together, and the break was absolute in real life too, to the point where when he died, um, Lena Astor was giving a party that night, and she decided not to cancel her dinner party, and she did not attend his funeral.
Yep.
there you go. Yeah, and I wonder if it, as Lisa was saying, if it was, after time, you're in the society, you just get like an insular view of the world, and as we were saying, clearly you didn't have an idea, even the little tidbits and juicy bits would have any effect. So maybe he was insulated because he was in the society he created and hung out, for 1884, we're talking probably, 15 years. Yeah, it's, you got to be careful, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the other real life historical society figure we have to talk about, my personal favorite, Mamie Fish, played by Ashley Atkinson. And it was
She's
so
funny.
great to, I know we've listened to the official Gilded Age podcast, which I absolutely recommend. They go into depth a lot with it. And I also recommend The Gilded Gentleman, which is somewhat affiliated. But I've listened to interviews with Ashley Atkinson, and it's clear she absolutely fell in love with this character, Mamie Fish, and it really comes through in the performance. She's so fun, like these weird parties she throws in the show, like the doll party or the bee on the
Oh,
leash,
yeah.
and all real stuff the real Mamie Fish did, and she just like did not care. And she could just get away with anything because she was well married, she had money, and people were just like, yeah, our eccentric aunt is throwing another party. Are we going to go? Of course we're going to go.
Yeah, she could
Yes.
speak truth to power too. She was the
Yeah,
only one that really had any sway over Mrs. Astor.
yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Showed that.
Yeah.
I will say I do have a contribution to people's list of things to read. There's a new book out called Glitz, Glam, and a Damn Good Time. How Mamie Fish, Queen of the Gilded Age, partied her way to power.
oh,
And
nice.
I just started reading it, and it is fabulous. Yeah,
Oh,
Nice.
very
that's good.
Mamie.
Excellent.
So
All right.
All right, that sounds good. And she's
Yeah.
the other contender for the best lines in the series too.
oh, for sure.
Yeah. Seals every scene she's in.
Yeah, I love seeing her. But then we get the darker side of what's going on, the change in society. Well, that's being brought to the light, I would say, and this is what's
Mhm.
really at the heart of the shift of power from Mrs. Astor to Mrs. Russell, and that's the question of divorced women. Whereas we see
Yeah.
at the beginning of the show, where I was talking about with Miss Chamberlain, how they're shunned. And now we start to see Aurora Fane, played by Kelly O'Hara. She's Agnes's niece by marriage, but she's called like a cousin of the Van Ryns and the Brooks, and she's a close friend of them. She's been a close ally of them the whole
Yeah.
show. And her husband, who is actually the blood relation of them, Ward Horton, he wants a divorce, but he's going to force her to apply for the divorce on the grounds of his infidelity, because that was the only way to get a divorce is the wronged person says you were unfaithful and sues for divorce. But still, it ruins her reputation, even though he's like, you can
Yeah.
have the house. She's like, yeah, but you're going to keep all of our friends. You're going to
Yeah.
keep my whole life.
Right. I won't be able to leave said house.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was such a great a terrible depiction of the reality, for women at that time. That was really heartbreaking, and I'm sure will kind of tie in the whole theme of marriage and divorce and how Bertha was like, I am going to, break this
Hmm.
this,
Yeah.
society rule and start welcoming divorced
Right.
women into the part. But yeah, Aurora's fabulous, played, like you said, by the fantastic 7-time Tony nominated actress Kelly O'Hara, who also sings opera, and she's amazing. So, yeah, it just, it wasn't her fault, and she's the one
No.
that is getting all of the punishment. And yeah, yeah, she's a
Yeah.
great character. I felt bad for her.
But it was
Yeah.
it's great to see Agnes stand up to Charles, her now ex-husband, and
Yeah.
choose Aurora over her blood
Yeah,
relation, and just be like, no, I don't care who I'm related to. You're wrong.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was the right move and a courageous one. And yeah, the storyline, it just I was filled with anxiety when those characters popped up on the screen, because it's like, it's going to be just so unfair
Yeah.
what's happening
Yep.
to her. Yeah.
But even worse in society's view is what's happening with Mrs. Astor's daughter, Carrie Astor, played by Amy Forsyth. And Carrie Astor is getting divorced for her infidelity.
Yep.
And so Carrie Astor is a historical figure, but she did not divorce or have this controversy. This is added for the show. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the duel.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, didn't her husband and her lover want to duel
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When dueling was going out, they were dueling. They wanted
Yeah.
to do it.
Speaking of toxic masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's interesting because we see these characters. So because this character is so tied to Mrs. Astor, there's the whole question of, will she show up to Bertha's ball at the end when Bertha says, I'm inviting the divorced women. And she does in the end. And and also the fact that Agnes would be another one of the people who would drag her feet about this the most, except that it's her best friend. And so if it's always like this with people. People are judgmental until it happens to someone you love.
Yeah.
Or yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that great scene where Ada stands up and tells Amora, we'll all come with you. And Agnes is like, we will?
Yeah.
And that was also a good way to strong arm Marion into going to the ball, even though she was at odds with Larry.
Yeah.
Like, you have to support
Smart.
Aurora.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, and societies, we keep saying, going through all these changes, we've referred to temperance. I know, Lisa, you had some more thoughts to put temperance into context?
Did
or was
I?
it you, Brian? Or is that you,
Oh,
Brian?
It was probably
Sorry.
Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That makes sense.
Yeah. Temperance is one of those things that is in the women's sphere, being at home, and it's the wives that were affected, right? They were the ones getting beaten up. They were getting abused. And so it was women who championed the temperance movement because it directly affected them.
Yeah.
So in
Their
their sphere.
husbands would spend all the money.
Yeah,
On
exactly. They
all.
would bankrupt their
Mhm.
household. Yeah, exactly. And cause shame to their family if the husband came in drunk
Yeah.
or acted drunk,
Yeah.
was drunk at a ball or
Mhm.
dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, as we talk about how that then blends into suffrage, because I think that was a
Mhm.
way that while they had different goals for different reasons, the women behind the temperance movement and then women's suffrage and the right to vote kind of went hand in hand, because it went down to female independence and the ability to make their own decisions and have a voice and have agency
Right.
in what's happening in their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because women were having some drinks at balls and things like that, but they weren't allowed to go to these public houses, where I think
Right.
is where a lot of the men who were becoming what we would call today alcoholics and being
Right.
abusive. I think that's where a lot of that was taking place. But it was interesting to see Ada be the one to take up this cause, because this is not something she had an experience with. And she's like, well, my husband was a Christian man. He would have wanted this. And Agnes is like, your husband drank wine.
Wine for dinner all the time.
Like, this is not the cause. That's why I was like, cancer treatments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. I think it was just an example, right, of her trying to explore who she was, and maybe she just tagged into that because, like some others, like, really, I don't think that's your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was glad to start to see her shift more toward, well, this New York Historical Society we already talked about, obviously, but also the suffrage movement, where they've highlighted, the suffrage has been a topic for seasons 2 and 3, and they highlighted Sarah J. Garnett in season 2 and Frances Ellen Watkins Harper in season 3, who are both real life historical leaders of the suffrage movement, both Black women. And this was a rare space where white and Black, especially women, might mingle.
Yeah.
Although, as they highlighted in this season, there were Black women and men who are afraid, if we fight for women, what if Black men who have only just recently gained the right to vote, what if they're losing it? Because at the same time, we're seeing these Jim Crow laws being implemented, a decline in civil rights. Yeah, Brian, do you want to talk to us more about that?
Yeah, this is exactly right, where you had a chance for women of all races to gather together. But this is the end. With Reconstruction's done, and what historians have called, this is the time period of the nadir. This is the beginning of the low point and the ushering of Jim Crow, and this is the year before a civil rights case, the civil rights cases, which isn't really talked a lot about in our public sphere, but that was a huge deal where it basically said if you're an individual or a private business, you can discriminate. So it basically made the Civil Rights Act unconstitutional of 1875. So this now opened up segregation. So now you can do whatever you want. And New York City is no exception. we keep thinking about the South, but the North had its own problems as well. People were literally throwing Black people out windows in New York City.
Or
Oh.
shooting them, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, whatever. And so you have this rise of Jim Crow and the rise, as you said, the civil rights, and just declining and getting worse and worse as the years go on.
So that brings us to the last batch of stories that we'll talk about in our epic. I mean, of course, we're talking 3 seasons, history and
Yeah.
drama, epic cast. But as I've been saying, Peggy Scott, has played by Danae Benton, has been one of my favorite characters from the beginning. I like the actress, I like the character, but also I like the window that she provides in this story, in the stories that are built around her. Her story is largely separate from the rest, which is why we're speaking about her last, which is historically accurate. Because as we said, there are the few places like the suffrage movement where there might be mingling, but in general, they also kind of invented this, her becoming. She comes with Marion at the beginning of the series, and they're caught in the snowstorm when they're traveling from Philadelphia by train, and she has to take refuge at the Van Ryn household that night. And she ends up getting to, I mean, Agnes is not a racist woman by any means. She just never really had exposure, obviously, to what they would call then colored people. And she says, you are an intelligent woman who studied at this school that I used to support in Philadelphia, and I need a secretary. Why don't you come be my personal secretary? So she moves into the house, and that opens up some back and forth between their storylines. And we have her parents. I'm so glad we have more of her parents this season.
Yeah. That was a great addition.
Yeah.
We have Dorothy and Arthur Scott, played by Audra McDonald and John Douglas Thompson. So yeah, Audra McDonald, I know. And Arthur Scott, he is a well-to-do freedman. So he was a slave who was freed and then built this business, a very successful pharmacy business. And we see that, we will get into the discrimination against him within the Black community for that past and for the darkness of his skin. But also we see him wanting to hold on to their place in society and the effect that that's had on their family. When before the show started, Peggy married someone she loved and they had a baby, and the marriage was annulled, and she was told the baby died at birth, and found out later it was given away for adoption. And this is held against her for the rest of her life from anyone who finds out.
The season 2 struggle in that marriage, and in that family, how do you forgive, for Peggy, how do you forgive your father for, doing that to you, to trying to annul your marriage, not supporting your marriage, taking your child away from you and lying to you about it? That was a lot of what we saw in season 2. And then, for Audra as well, for Peggy's mom, Dorothy, as well. How do you have a marriage? Because I'm not quite sure that she knew that either. I don't remember, but it really was something in season 2 that family really had to deal with, and whether or not they wanted to forgive Arthur for the choices that he made on their behalf. And that was a big fissure that they had to mend last season. So,
yeah. And we talked a bit about Peggy's gradual acceptance of most of the Van Ryn household and how she makes an impact there, with people just being like, oh, well, wait, maybe we shouldn't be racist. I don't know. Who would think?
Right. And I think she was good at standing up for herself.
Right.
Those times that Armstrong was especially vocal about her racism.
Right.
Peggy really defended herself.
Yeah. And she's an impressive person of her own right. She's pursuing her own career in journalism and fiction, which is close to my own heart. And we see her she's quite obviously she's based on people like Ada Brooke or Ida. What's her name?
Ida Wells.
Ida Wells.
Woo.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she is getting her name in the paper, and this is where we get her next brush with Rutrow. The Based on a real person, T. Thomas Fortune, played by Sullivan Jones. He was the editor-in-chief in the show of the New York Globe, which changed names several times. It was a real paper, it was a real person.
That's
This
right.
whole thing about him being married and taking advantage of Peggy is obviously a show invention. But we see him try it again this season, which is a great opportunity for Dr. William Kirkland, Peg Newbo, to come back and be like, no,
No,
shutting that down.
that was
Yeah,
awesome.
it was. And
That's
Peggy is such a confident person
Mhm.
that it's just a joy to see her kind of maneuver all these tough situations. And the fact that she's also, I think, part of Julia Collins is a Black writer who wrote an unfinished novel, I think, in the 1860s. So they consider her the first African American novelist in America. So that's another composite as well to this
the
story.
novel. Okay.
Yeah, was this novelist that was alive and tried to write something. So it takes a lot of courage when you think about it, right? To try to write and try to publish as a Black woman, a Black
A Black
and woman.
and a woman.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a woman. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
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 Great story.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, within the Black community itself, it's not like it's a unified. No group is ever
No.
unified. And we see within there's snobbery from, for instance, Dr. Kirkland's mother, Elizabeth Kirkland, played by Felicia Rashad. I hated hating Felicia Rashad this
I know,
season.
right?
I know.
Oh, but she did such a good job of making us.
I know.
Oh,
She was loathsome.
yeah, she nailed it. She nailed it. That was a great scene
Oh
where
my
she
God.
starts dressing down the the Scott family.
Oh,
Oh, well,
great.
oh, you're slaves? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great example, Alicia, as you said, that class and identity could be among all races. It doesn't matter. It's
Mhm.
equal opportunity.
Right.
Equal
Yeah.
opportunity
She's
offender.
like,
Yeah.
my family dates back to the revolution.
Yes.
And they were
Yeah.
careful to cast in that family all very light-skinned actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so we see her
Exactly.
saying things like, oh, don't let my grandbabies out in the sun. We don't need them to get any darker, and the
Yeah.
comments about Peggy's father being a former slave. And, in fact, he made his own name. It should be more impressive when someone makes their own fortune within their own lifetime rather
Yes.
than inherits it.
Yeah.
Having survived what they did. And so
Mhm.
you wonder if if the snobbery of the time with the Kirklands, I don't know, this is a question from Brian. Did they not fundamentally understand how poorly the slaves were treated and how awful the Civil War was? I mean, were they insulated in that way? I don't know. But yeah, it was really, to your point, Alicia, you'd think it would be, a statement of success and not to
Yeah.
be looked down upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot, when you think about it to unpack there where you have, I think some of it is insulated. You're in a society where maybe your sons or maybe yourself could go and fight. There was, some Black troops in the Union, certainly, and that was growing. But I do think also is, how do you weigh as a race that was part of that race was enslaved? And how do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think it is pretty common, right, to have to look down, maybe be embarrassed, be ashamed, be shamed
Mhm.
that part of your race was enslaved.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
A lot
it's
to unpack.
I mean, even, it's similar to what we see a lot where immigrants to places, they
Mm.
have what they end up falling into what's called like the shut the door behind you policy. Like, well, I came here legitimately, but we
Yeah.
don't want anyone else coming and taking some of this good stuff that I got.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so the people that you would think would be most supporting immigration are actually the ones who don't.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Yeah, and of course, she finds out about Peggy's past and tries to put a wrench in the budding. I mean, I love Peggy's been through so much. I was like, let the woman have love. And she meets this handsome Dr. William Kirkland, played by Jordan Donica, who I know from the remake of Charmed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
But he was Arthur, Peggy's dad's. Arthur's a pharmacist. Dr. Kirkland is a doctor, as the name suggests, and so he was her family doctor, and he comes to take care of Peggy. Classic romance while she's sick,
Mhm.
and then he takes care of her real good. No, not like that. Not like that. He's respectful, but he starts inviting her out. He's impressed by who she is as a person. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key of a relationship that's going to last. He's like, and his mom's like, oh, but she's going to be busy with her writing career and her
Mhm,
activism, and
Yeah.
she's not going to have time for children. And
mhm.
and Peggy stands up to her, and she's like, I'm going to be a better mother in a way because I'm going to teach my children to have these values.
Yeah, there
Um,
was an interesting conversation in the carriage between Dr. Kirtland and his mom when he's saying, how accomplished Peggy is and how much he admires and respects her. And he said, you admire and respect her as a woman, which is
mm,
fine, but those qualities in a wife, you may be surprised how you might feel differently about her if you want to put her in the wife bucket. So there's that. And then later on, we learn that he tricked his mother into attending the suffrage lecture. And Peggy was like, "Didn't you tell her what this is about?" And she's like,
right.
"No, she wouldn't have come without." So I definitely don't think the mommy issues are gone for Dr. Kirtland, and
No.
I'm wondering as we talk into our next subject about how he does finally um, understand and not disregard, but doesn't hold it against Peggy, her circumstances. But I'm wondering, it seems like a very delicate fine line between him and his mother. Maybe Dr. Kirtland got some bravery because of the money and the comments that came from the Russell family. Look, we're paying you for what you've done and your skill set, but we're also paying you for your bravery, which we've already talked
Hmm.
about in this episode. And so he, now he probably has more money now to make his own decisions and feel he
Mm.
can, be separate from his parents and his mother. And so I question a little bit his motives. I know that he loves her. I know that they love each other, but I think it'll be nice and juicy in season 4. That is it going to last, and it's going to be tough. But just Peggy, that was the best part of the end of our season 3 was Peggy finally
Yeah.
getting proposed to
Mhm.
and seeing happiness and the whole
Yeah.
Cinderella and the ball and the slow
They did the
motion.
slow-mo which during
Yeah,
which
Yeah.
they never do. That's
they
like, yeah.
never do that.
Yeah, they're like, this is a moment. Let's celebrate this moment. A lot of stuff's happened.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was satisfying to see the chain of people standing up to Elizabeth Kirkland, starting with
Mhm.
Peggy herself, as we said, and also Dorothy she has this moment in the dress shop, and
Yes.
you will not judge my family, and we will be coming to your ball. Just
Yes.
FYI, we
Yeah.
Yes.
RSVP'd and we are coming.
I will not
And
hold my tongue.
yeah,
Yeah.
and her we didn't mention it, but Dorothy's had her cousin and seems like a close friend, Athena Trumbo, has been staying with her in Newport, because we didn't even get a chance to get into Newport as the
Mhm.
a bastion of Black society, but also society in general during this time, Newport, Rhode Island. So a lot of the season took place there. But anyway, Athena does not have her back in this moment. She's
No.
like, "Oh, I'm sorry that she's speaking out of turn."
Right. Yeah. Do you really want to
Yeah.
be saying that? And, she tries to
Hmm.
calm her down. She's like, I will not hold my tongue. You know,
Yeah.
that was a great
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, and I was impressed also by Dr. Kirtland's father at
Yeah.
the end,
Mhm.
siding with him.
Woman?
It's like, "You need woman, back off."
I laughed when he said woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played by the great Brian Stokes Mitchell, another
Yep.
Mhm.
great television,
Mm,
theater, film, Tony winner. So,
But
yeah.
yeah.
he was such a mild-mannered character throughout the season, just a nice
Yeah.
guy, but to see him finally be like, "No, I've seen you stir up way too much shit and we are done with it.
Yep.
This is
Yeah.
not the kind of people we are."
Nope.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. Yep. I only tolerate it to a point, and now it's over.
Yeah. And then finally, that's the final tipping point. I think it started with, Lisa, you were talking about George Russell thanking him for his bravery with the money. I think he needed that reminder. That's
Mhm.
right. I'm a brave man. That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And we don't know how much he got either. I'm curious, but we may
How much
never know.
money?
I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
But it
Yeah.
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
lot.
But I
I'm
mean,
thinking,
yeah, his
Not as
reaction
much
to it,
as
it's like,
Jack for the clock, but yeah.
that's right. That's right. But it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't accept this.
Yeah.
Yes, you
yes,
can.
you can.
Yes, you can and you will. Because I
Yes.
am George Russell and what I say goes.
You don't think
right.
saving me was worth that kind of money? I'm here to
Yeah.
tell you
right.
it was.
Yeah. So, do you have any other? I mean, there's so much we couldn't cover. We referenced the Brooklyn Bridge story in previous seasons, the advent of electricity. We got to see the twinkling lights of the ball at the end here, which was following up on that story. Advent of the Red Cross. Peggy,
Yeah.
her eye-opening trip to the South to meet Booker T. Washington. The Oscar Wilde, as you mentioned. There's so much we
Yeah.
weren't able to bring up, but is there anything else you want to add about the first 3 seasons, and what are you looking forward to most for the confirmed season 4?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I wonder. I'm hoping to see Agnes have some more some social resurgence because of her role in the historical society. Definitely looking forward to Ada. Growing in her authority and her confidence for sure. So I think that'll be fun to watch. I've mentioned before that I'm very much now looking forward to Oscar and the power couple storyline, and being a thorn in the Russell side, and that kind of thing. I have already talked about my questions about Peggy and William and whatnot. We've definitely said we definitely look forward to seeing what Jack is going to be up to, and how his new lifestyle and his adjustment to this new money life is going to be, and then Jack and Bridget becoming a couple. I hope. Um, it's yeah, it's going to be interesting. What will they do with Mrs. Astor? And that whole
Mhm.
thing. So,
Hmm.
we've broken some barriers clearly. So hopefully season 4 will explore the aftermath and the continuing aftershocks of what
Yeah.
Brooke has been doing with society. I think will be, really, really interesting. So, but yeah, it will mostly stem on, George and Bertha for sure, and what's going to
Yeah.
happen with their marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. All the above. And I'm interested, to see how Gladys and Hector operate
Mhm.
Yeah.
and how much they will focus on that. I was
Mm.
worried when she got married off, we would never see Gladys again, but I was really pleasantly surprised to see that they carried it over across the pond.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how much they focus on that as well.
Yeah. Which they do. They film the England stuff on Long Island, but I don't blame them. That's
Oh, yeah.
it
Okay.
works. Uh, um Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, all of the above. We've talked about so many storylines and potential storylines for next season. If I had to narrow it down to one, maybe it's Clock Twink and
Oh,
or and his
yeah.
new
Yeah.
mixer and yeah, just what does it look like to like I said, I love a fish out of water story, and I just
Mhm.
want to see how he. This is a new type of breaking into society. Like they thought
Yeah.
that Mrs. Russell was low class. Well, here's the footman, but
Right.
also it's Mrs. Russell's ex-maid is also marrying the neighbors across the street. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
dishy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
fishy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Imagine Bridget trying to also break into that. Like if
mhm.
they are a couple,
Oh
Mhm.
my
it's like,
gosh,
oh my
overwhelming
gosh.
for her. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
then, those of us who are Larian fans,
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I feel
Hmm.
optimistic that it will work out for the two of them, but what will, as storytellers, what will they throw into those characters' way again?
Mhm.
So there might be a new conflict or something that split them. And to what we've been talking about, it may be what happens with Oscar's shenanigans with the Russell and the JP Morgan. And so maybe that's where we'll see some split, and that'll be the major conflict that we'll see next season is the effect
Yeah.
of Oscar and his shenanigans with his new wife and the impact that they'll have on the Russell business and then therefore the families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So stay tuned for season 4, probably in 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah. No.
But one other recommendation we haven't discussed all throughout there is Upstairs, Downstairs is another great one.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
Mm.
Yeah, our family were big fans of that. I never saw it though.
I didn't either.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, there you go. That's a recommendation for you both as well.
that's right.
Well, okay. In the meantime, while you wait for season 4, there's lots of going on in the Lorehounds network. We've got Foundation season 3. We're in the back half with John and Marilyn's coverage, which has been, I think this has been one of the strongest seasons of the show.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very, very good stuff.
We just started Alien Earth season 1 with David and different guest hosts each week. So the first 2 episodes are out now, and Luke and I were the guest hosts. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm also going to be starting weekly coverage of Peacemaker season 2, starting with right after this episode, we'll have a Peacemaker season 1 recap with Jean and I. And then Aaron from Radioactive Ramblings is going to be joining us for the weekly coverage of Peacemaker season 2. So I'm very excited about that. I'm a Marvel girl, but I am really going gung ho DC these days, I'll say.
Yep, they've turned the corner. I hope.
Yeah. And also watch out in the beginning of September for the Emmy nominations episode part 2. We decided to delay that till September as sort of a prep before the awards air. So we're going to be talking about the major categories there and the shows we watch, how they fared. If you have feedback about any of these things, send that to lorehounds at thelorehounds.com. And also, we've talked a lot about the Discord. You'll find a link to that in the link tree in the show notes. There is a Gilded Age chat in the general TV forum. And you'll find Brian and Lisa there as well. Brian, you are Usul. You have been our, especially Discord Usul. You've been the head moderator.
Right, exactly. We built a great community there.
Making the machine run.
Yeah, good community.
And for those of us who want to give us a little extra support, I cannot tell you how much it is appreciated because I am the poor cousin from Pennsylvania, but you can join Supercast and Patreon and you'll get ad-free access to all of our podcasts, but also bonus content like extra episodes for certain shows like Andor and Severance, and also other extra episodes like little mini What You Watching episodes where we talk about things we don't have time to cover in full, like a recent weapons episode. We also have our monthly second breakfast and 11Zs. August is David's month, and we are doing poutine for second breakfast, and it looks like Airplane trounced the others in the 80s 90s spoof category.
Okay.
Nice.
Outstanding. Brian and I used to recite that. We watched it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a lot of fans for that one. So I think it got 80% of the vote.
Yeah.
Even though I thought
Excellent.
Naked Gun, was Naked Gun 33.5, not the first one.
Right.
But I thought since the new movie was out that one was going to be the winner. But no, people love Airplane.
We wouldn't have Naked Gun without Airplane. So
It's
Airplane,
true.
That's right.
the mother of them all.
Yeah,
OG.
indeed.
OG.
Also, you'll find in the link tree links to our affiliates. Check out Nevermind the Music, where psychology meets music, Radioactive Ramblings, covering all sorts of Fallouts, The Boys. I think they might be covering the second season of, what is it called? Gen V. Rings and Rituals will soon be doing, or I don't want to say soon, but they will be doing season 2, a more in-depth coverage of Rings of Power. Properly Howard, they're wrapping up their bacon-wrapped season of funny movie reviews. I really especially liked their, not There Will Be Blood, the other one, No Country for Old Men. That was a great conversation about Westerns there and what makes a Western or an anti-Western. My Own Will Shift Dust, we are getting into the original Dune book breakdown with Luke and I, and the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast will be back soon with more High Republic content. And if you are listening at home later, you will hear music right now that Brian and Lisa do not hear. because I'm about to read out the thank yous. Thank you to our Discord server boosters, Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Duve71, Athena, Jalea, Lestu, Nancy M, Ghost of Perdition, and Radioactive Richard. And thank you to all of our listeners. This is, we could not do this without you, literally. There would be no point. But you can help us out even if you're not interested in becoming a subscriber. That's fine. That's great. But you can help us out for free in small ways by recommending this to someone else who likes this content, who wants to know more about the history behind the Gilded Age. And you can also leave a nice review wherever you're listening. 5 stars is really appreciated. But yes, thank you especially to our subscribers, to our Lorehounds, and most of all to our Lore Masters, our highest tier. Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, Brian P, SC, Peter OH, Adam S, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, hey, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Matthew M, Sarah M, Andrew B, Kwong Yu, Jedi Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W, Lestu, Jeffrey B, Elysia U, Neil F, Ben B, Scott F, Stephen N, Julia F, Collie S, Ilmariel, /Tim, Paul K, Bobby C, Jessica H, and always last, Adrienne. Thank you all. And tune in for Alien Earth episode 4 for more from Brian, right?
That's right. Alien episode 4.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great chatting.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.